All right. Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock, March 9th, our regularly scheduled Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Call this meeting to order. We'll start with the roll call, please.
Member Ritter? Here. Member Vender?
Here.
Member Leister?
Here.
Member Hanley?
Here.
Member Nielsen?
Here.
Member Haller?
Here.
Chair Bradley?
I am here. Agenda item 2, approval of minutes. A copy of the February 9th regular meeting minutes were included in our packet. I would entertain a motion to approve. That's Member Hanley. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's Member Ritter. Roll call. No. All in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. The meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item 3, community development report. Staff, anything?
No updates since the last meeting.
Great, thank you. Then we are moving on to agenda item 4, our continued cases. Our only continued case is case number 2528 SU, otherwise known as 225 Sheridan Road in Centennial Beach. This is an application seeking approval of a special use permit to allow installation of fencing on that existing beach. Village Council has final jurisdiction on this request. Everyone will note this item was continued from our February 9th ZBA meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Bradley. Good evening. At the February 9th meeting, the ZBA did commence the public hearing for this application. However, since the proposed plan was amended prior to the February 9th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting and had not been submitted to the village for review in advance of that meeting, the board did vote to continue the item to the meeting this evening. With any development project, there are various types of review by the village. Some are administrative reviews handled by staff, and other reviews involve a public review process. This table summarizes the role of village staff, the advisory bodies, and the village council in the various aspects of the village approval process. If a project does not require zoning relief, staff would be able to review and approve the project administratively if the applicant is able to demonstrate that the proposed improvements comply with applicable building and site improvement codes, such as stormwater regulations, lakefront construction regulations, and the steep slope regulations. If a proposed development does require approval of some type of zoning entitlement, relief during the village staff's review of the zoning entitlement application, staff will conduct a preliminary review of the project for code requirements to determine if development should be approved, that they would be able to construct the proposed improvements in general terms and comply with the administrative code requirements. So as this table notes in the green text, the ZBA will review and provide the village council with a recommendation regarding the special use permit. The zoning board is not reviewing the appearance of the proposed fencing. The certificate of appropriateness that is required for this improvement will be considered by the design review board. Given the property is located along Lake Michigan, it's subject to the lakefront construction ordinance of the village code, as well as the steep slope regulations. However, it's important to note that the proposed fencing is not located within the steep slope. It is located east of the toe of the bluff, lakeward. The lakefront construction regulations do give the village the authority to review and approve improvements along, adjacent to, and within the lake that require permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the IDNR, MWRD, and the Illinois EPA. The review and approval of such a village permit is handled administratively by the Director of Engineering in consultation with the village coastal engineering consultant. The director's review and approval is based on a set of criteria that is set forth in chapter 15.78 of the village code. So the village's formal review and approval of such a permit occurs after the applicable zoning approvals and the regulatory agencies review and approve their respective permits. In terms of the public trust doctrine, Illinois courts have held that the boundary between private land and land owned by the state and public trust is the line where the water usually stands when unaffected by storms and other disturbing causes. This line is variously referred to by many names. In Illinois, it's referred to as the normal water line. So generally speaking, the owner of real estate fronting on the lake owns the property to the normal water line, and the land east of the normal water line is owned by the state and trust for the public. Now focusing on the site itself, we're all obviously familiar with the location of Centennial Park on the east side of Sheridan Road between Fuller and Elder Lane. It's zoned R2 single-family residential and is in the Lakefront Preservation Overlay District. Public parks and recreation facilities are allowed as a special use in the R2 district. Given the subject property remains under public ownership, the Lakefront Preservation Overlay District regulations currently do not apply, but would apply should ownership of any part of the public park and beach become privately owned. Included in the staff report are images of the beach. This slide includes photos taken in January. The existing steel groin on Centennial Beach and the stone groin on the property to the south are seen in the photo on the right. These are photos taken in the summer of 2024. They show the beach without the snow cover. The applicant has also included photos in their application materials. In response to the comments heard at the January 28th Plan Commission meeting, the applicant has submitted an amended plan, which is the plan being considered by the zoning board this evening. The original plan seen here on this slide consisted of 2 rows of 4-foot-high chain link fencing extending perpendicular from the existing seawall at the toe of the bluff into the lake. Both sections of fencing were proposed to be approximately 20 feet from the north and south boundaries of the beach. This plan required those walking the beach to walk through the dog beach area. Now, obviously, the purpose of the fencing is to provide an enclosure to allow dogs to be off-leash year-round. Currently, patrons are required to have a key fob to access the existing beach from the top of the bluff, and dogs are required to be leashed. In the proposed plan, the existing gate at the top of the bluff would remain, but access would be controlled with a programmed timing lock system that would operate from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., thereby allowing public access to the beach. While the entry into the fenced dog beach area would be restricted with the key fob system that's currently in place at the top of the bluff. The north and south sections of the fence would be attached or mounted to the existing steel groins and enclose approximately 265 feet of frontage of the beach to allow the dogs to be off-leash. This represents a reduction of approximately 50% from the original plan presented to the Plan Commission in terms of the linear footage of beachfront. The remaining portion of the beach, consisting of approximately 260 feet of the lake frontage, would be used as a passive beach without swimming. Staffing for this portion of the beach would be during the typical beach season, and a beach pass would be required. It would remain accessible during the off-season, but it would not be staffed. In terms of parking on the site, currently the lot consists of 11 spaces, and use of the lot is restricted to those with the dog pass, as well as Winnetka residents. The applicant intends for this parking policy to remain in place, but I'm sure they will explain in more detail some additional restrictions that could be put in place if necessary. For example, a 2-hour time limit, or restricting the parking to dog pass holders only. Another major difference in the amended plan is the addition of what I'll refer to as a west fence that would be 4 feet in height. It's located, or would be located, 12 feet from the existing seawall. So this would allow the public to traverse the beach without entering that enclosed dog area. At the northwest corner of that fenced area, there would be a double entry gate system that would measure 10 feet by 10 feet. That northern section of fencing would extend 46 feet 6 inches. And then approximately 20 feet of that would extend lakeward of the ordinary high water mark, which is represented here by the blue line. The extent to which the proposed fence would extend beyond the ordinary high water mark is reduced by approximately 20 feet in this amended plan compared to what was presented to the Plan Commission. The south fence would be 49 feet 3 inches, extending east to west. Again, approximately 20 feet would extend from the ordinary high water mark towards the lake. There would not be an access gate in this section of the fence. The access would all be restricted to that northwest corner. Now, on the southern end of the fencing, at the west end, if you will, the fence would be set back 5 feet from the south property line. And due to the angle of the existing steel groin upon which the proposed fence would be mounted to, in relation to the south property line, the distance between the proposed fence and the south property line would narrow from the 5 feet at the west end until it meets the south property line and the fence then ends. Now, given the proximity of the proposed fence to the south property line, it's important to note the distance between the property line and the stairs that go over the stone groin to the south is approximately 10 feet on the property to the south. At this location, the fence would be 1 foot 11 inches from that south property line to where the fence begins. So 1 foot 11 inches from the proposed fence to the property line. This slide is representing the north fence in more detail, as well as providing the elevation of the proposed fencing. You may recall with the adoption of the steep slope regulations, the zoning ordinance was also amended to refine the front lot line along the lake, as well as the front yard setback. The front lot line is now the ordinary high water mark and is defined as the line on the shore of the lake, consistent with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers administrative benchmark, which is currently 581.5. The front yard setback is now defined as the toe of the bluff, or 50 feet from the ordinary high water mark, whichever is furthest from the ordinary high water mark. On this particular site, the front yard setback is 50 feet from the ordinary high water mark. The zoning ordinance does allow fences within a required yard that are no taller than 6 feet 6 inches in height above natural grade. While the proposed fence would be located within the required front yard, and it would be installed on top of the existing steel groins at a maximum aggregate height. So steel groin plus fence, the maximum height would be 5 feet 11 inches, which complies with a maximum permitted height of 6 feet 6 inches. So the proposed fence does comply with the zoning regulations. This slide is showing the same, but for the south fence, I will note that the two lakeward sections of both the north and south fence would be modular, so those sections would be able to be removed during the winter months. The Plan Commission, as I previously mentioned, considered the special use on January 28th, and by a vote of 7-0, they did recommend denial of the special use permit. The DRB is tentatively scheduled to consider the certificate of appropriateness on March 26th. Once all three advisory bodies have completed their reviews, the Village Council will be considering this request. As a reminder, the zoning board's role is to evaluate the special use for consistency with the 6 standards for granting special use permits and make a recommendation to the Village Council. These standards are included on page 22 of your packet. Staff did receive 3 additional emails and letters from the public today. Those emails were shared with you, and there are hard copies provided for you on the dais this evening. And here are your actions that could be taken this evening after you hear from the applicant and the public. You as a board will obviously discuss the application and deliberate, and then act on a recommendation, direct the village staff and the village attorney to prepare a draft recommendation with or without conditions and written findings and determinations for consideration at a subsequent meeting, or direct the applicant or village staff to provide some additional information. With that, I have nothing further unless you have questions for staff.
Thank you, Ann, as always. Do any commissioners have questions for staff?
I have one.
Please, go ahead.
So Ann, on your, because they amended since they were at the Plan Commission, after they're done with us, do they go back to the Plan Commission with their amended?
No, the Plan Commission made their recommendation of denial on the original application,
Okay.
and we're not interested in seeing an amended plan. This amended plan will be presented to the Design Review Board unless there are further changes as a result of this evening's meeting.
Okay.
So, thank you for that question. So what would inevitably go up to the village council would be recommendations from the zoning board and the design review board on this amended plan, plus the recommendation of the plan commission on a plan that's not before.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Government. Anybody else? Questions? Going once, going twice? All right. Thank you, Ann. Really appreciate it. The applicant's representatives are here tonight. We'll swear you guys in and we can get started.
Sure.
Can you raise your right hand real quick for me? You promise the testimony you'll give tonight to this board shall be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And your names for the record as you get going?
Yes,
Nice to see you
Mr.
again.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hal Frank.
Excuse me.
I'm an attorney with the law firm of Meltzer, Pertil, and Stell. Pleased to be before you again. While Costa gets we have a PowerPoint. While he gets that ready, I'd like to follow up on the last conversation that Member Hanley and the chair you had with Ann about the different plans. As some of you, or perhaps all of you know, at the end of the Plan Commission deliberations back in January, I approached and asked about the possibility of continuing that meeting so that we could come back with a revised plan. And it was suggested at the conclusion of that meeting that instead of doing that, we just appear before you with a revised plan. And so that is what we are doing tonight. We do have a significantly different plan, as you know. Okay. And we look forward to sharing that with you in detail this evening. Here's a brief outline.
Sorry, Counselor, give us 1 second. Our screen just went dead.
We don't, oh, I thought it's on, but we disconnected.
You got to switch.
Sorry, guys.
There we go.
Did it?
That's all the time we have for today.
Good? Amazing. Thank you very much.
Staff.
Just very briefly, an outline of what we intend to cover this evening. I will review the background of the project and the specific request for approval, which Ann just walked through. Review for you some of the applicable laws and regulations that are serving as the basis for this application. We will then review the history of the Centennial Dog Beach, the purpose of the current project, go through in a little bit more detail the plan for the current plan for the fencing that's now proposed, some of which you just heard about from Ann. We're going to bring you up to date on the state of the additional permits that have been applied for, as you heard Ann say at the beginning of the meeting, because we are proposing, the Park District is proposing the construction of a structure along the lakefront. Army Corps and IDNR permits are needed, so Costa is going to talk about that a little bit. I'll then address the issues that have come up to a certain extent that involve the public trust doctrine, again, something that Ann touched on. And finally, we will talk about why we think the special use standards are satisfied by the current application. Again, you've already heard that the request before you is for a special use permit. The way things work in Winnetka, as you know, you go first to the Plan Commission, then to the Zoning Board, and then ultimately to the Village Council for a final decision. The request is to install fencing to create an off-leash dog beach area and to operate that dog beach as an off-leash area. The goal is to be able to allow residents of the village and other members of the public to do what they have done historically for over 30 years in bringing their dogs to the beach for recreation and letting them run without being on a leash. As Ann already said, this is simply an application for special use, unlike other applications that you've heard in recent years from the Park District. This application does not involve a request for any zoning variations. So one of the regulations that we're striving to be in conformance with is the Winnetka leash law, which I'm assuming all or most of you are familiar with. That law applies, the law that requires dogs to be kept on leash. It applies to public property as well as private property. And individuals who are found to be in violation of this village ordinance can be fined anywhere from $50 to $750 for each violation. So we're trying to make sure that residents who do end up bringing their dog to the beach and enjoying it don't have to fear being in violation of the law, local law. It is also a requirement of Cook County regulations that dog parks be fully enclosed, which is another reason why the application is before you this evening. Another thing that the county regulations require is that there are to a dog beach area like this a security element, so that the people that are bringing their dogs to the beach have confirmed to the satisfaction of the operator of the dog beach, in this case the Park District, that appropriate vaccinations have been obtained, licenses, and that is why you'll hear Costa this evening talk about the controlled access. At this time, I would like to turn the floor over to Costa Catullas, who is the Director of Parks and Maintenance for the Park District.
Thank you.
Hal, thank you, and good evening. My name is Costa Catullas, as Hal said, Director of Parks and Maintenance for the Winnetka Park District. As we continue to present through the plan, want to talk about the project purpose for the plan, once again to conform with the regulations that Hal identified this evening, as well as conformity of the standards and regulations throughout Winnetka, whether it be the Village of Winnetka with their leash law, whether it's Cook County Department of Animal and Rabies Control, or the other authority bodies for the Army Corps, and as well as the IDNR and so forth. In addition to that, we just want to make sure that when we design this plan, it's the best plan for the public, and it's taken into consider all the safety aspects around that plan, along with the shoreline access of what that looks like. And as I stated already, as far as conforming with the regulatory requirements. History of the Dog Beach started back in 1995. From there, the Village of Winnetka adopted the leash law in 2008. Or 18 years later, that went into place. The Park District in 2009 had requests from the public due to complaints from dogs running at large from Centennial Beach to Elder Lane Beach. And at that point, we did install a fence that was in place for approximately about 6 years that ran a 4-foot fence on the northern boundary of the park to limit dogs' access across the beach. That fence was in place for 6 years. At that time, no permits were pulled or needed. Park District installed it, ran for 6 years without issue. Moving forward to the Lakefront Master Plan, in 2014-2016, it was identified different things in the master plan to take into consideration the Dog Beach Centennial, what that should look like, whether that should remain at that location, whether it should be removed entirely. At that point, the dog fencing was not reinstalled or suggested at that time. So the Park District did move forward and adopted the master plan in 2016. From there, the Winnetka Park District passed a motion as in September of 2021 to create a Dog Beach Advisory Committee to further review the discussion around Centennial Dog Beach, as well as dog beaches along the North Shore, or in this case in the Village of Winnetka, and trying to find the best location for that. After the study was complete in October in 2022, the Park Board did identify and motion to retain the dog beach at Centennial Beach as it's been identified. We did install temporary fencing in January of 2023, both on the north and south property line. We were told to remove that fencing without haste by not only the Village of Winnetka, but the Army Corps and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources as well. From there, the Park Board did adopt Ordinance 596, which requires dogs to be on leash, including Centennial Beach, where that was one of the sites where dogs were able to run at large previously. From there, the Park District submitted permit applications to the IDNR, IEPA, and the Corps in April 2025, and then submitted a building permit to the Village of Winnetka for our plan at that time in May of 2025. The Park District did undergo a beach cleanup for both Elder and Centennial Park. There were hazards that were identified in the lake, so we went ahead and moved forward on that with the intent to reopen Elder for swimming and reopen Centennial Park to reduce those hazards to make it more endurable for the community and safer for those users. From there, the Park District also submitted the special use permit that is in front of you this evening, 25-28-SU, and then we've continued to move forward through that process. You know the history through the Plan Commission thus far and where we're at tonight for our presentation to the Zoning Board here. In addition to that, we have received permits both from the IEPA and the IDNR. That was the initial permits from them were received back in December 2025. And since then, the Park Board did amend to change the plan based on the suggestions and the information that we received at the Plan Commission from the January 28th Plan Commission meeting to consider some of the concerns that we heard from the Plan Commission and come back with a better plan that addressed those concerns. Just most recently, February 26th, about a week and a half ago, we did receive the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit for the previous design as well. So that means we would have we did receive both permit applications for the other regulatory agencies to date. Once again, that was for the previous plan design, which Ann noted in her presentation, where it was the two fence lines that ran inside of the property lines 20 feet on the north and the south boundaries. And as far as Cook County Department of Animal and Rabies Control, that's still to be determined at this time. The suggested conversations through them is they'll give us an answer once we have all our permits in place. One of the things that we wanted to note as well is the amount of Dog Beach users that utilize Centennial Beach. In fact, the Dog Beach users themselves. So this chart here, along with the data, kind of snapshots that for 2025. 2025 was the only complete data set that we had, so we want to make sure that we were capturing that in its entirety. So we looked at 3 seasons, the peak season, basically Memorial through Labor Day. We looked at the shoulder seasons, which was April to Memorial Day, and then from Labor Day to November 30th, and then the winter. In the peak seasons, we averaged around 31 users per day. That is the average. In the shoulder seasons, about 15, and then in the wintertime, approximately about 5 users per day. So some key takeaways is the winter usage drops dramatically, as the figures here show, but also that the primary use of this is during the peak summer seasons as well. Here you'll see the Centennial Dog Beach passes that we've sold to date from 2010 to 2025 thus far. On average, we sell around 310 to residents and around 75 to non-residents. In the year 2025, with the data that we just compared to, we've sold a total of 390 passes for the season. Also wanted to make note of the Dog Beach hours, the current hours. The Dog Beach is open year-round, and it does have the hours set from sunrise to sunset. We'll go into the park hours a little bit later. As Ann noted, we are looking to adjust the park hours with the gate operation accordingly, and we'll note that here in a moment. So the Centennial Dog Beach overview, things to talk about and identify is, of course, the installation of the additional 265 feet, or that western fence that parallels the toe of the seawall, or the toe of the bluff. That is a new addition to allow in the creation of a bypass for people to walk the shoreline continuously without having to walk through an active dog beach for safety and security reasons, as we heard. The mixed use, kids, and so forth. We also want to note that we are no longer proposing to put fencing into the lake. That's a standalone fence system. We are utilizing the existing infrastructure as our base for the foundation of the new proposed fences, as we did identify previously with other plans as well. This allows for the installation of fencing and the removal of fencing off of a solid known foundation without the concern of, or less of a concern for damage around the winter months. And as Ann already pointed out in part of our conversation, the easternmost 20 feet of fencing is going to be removable, where during the winter months, when it would primarily get the most damage from ice mounding and winter storm events and so forth, that will be removed for that off season to prevent that damage and to help with some of the concerns we heard around safety. The inclusion of the bypass we've already noted, and then of course the electronic key fob system. As Hal indicated earlier on in the presentation, the requirement for the Cook County Department of Animal and Rabies Control is a controlled access point, and that was that double gate system. That double gate system allows the park district to identify and affirm that the users have submitted their applications from their vets that have been certified in regards to rabies, bordetella, distemper, all the vaccinations that are needed. That is a controlled access point as identified, and that allows only users who submit their applications in and verified to gain access to that beach. If we were to leave those gates unlocked, essentially that would allow anybody to utilize the off-leash dog beach, not accounting for the vaccination records and making sure that the type of use is appropriate for what it was intended for and is safe. We also will be looking to update all the signage as well at the entry points to make sure that it conforms and people understand what the new regulations are and the requirements of that. And of course, the concern of dogs running at large as identified with the Cook County regulations, the double gate entry system or the vestibule area requires a 2-gate area to allow for somebody to walk in through the fob area. Then they can off-leash their pet at that point and then gain access to the dog beach itself. That allows somebody who's accessing that where there might be another dog already in the site off-leash who would have a chance to escape and run at large, and that's what we're preventing by that application. So the other change now is, since we've reduced the site nearly in half, is the North Beach. And as part of our application, we wanted to note that the beach is destined or set to be a passive human beach without swimming. That means the beach itself would be operated as we have in the past. So a lot of people might be familiar with what we did at Elder Lane Beach last year, late season when we reopened it, where we had beach attendants on staff to check passes and check access, as well as make sure people are using the site as intended without swimming. That also allows during the season for people's dog passes to be checked to make sure that they are conforming to the regulations of keeping their dogs on leash through the park until they actually get down to beach level and in the new proposed dog beach area. That would only be for the beach season, which is typically, I'll say, Memorial Day to Labor Day. The off-season, the passes would not be required for the access to the north side, and it would be fairly or open and access for the public to use as they would during the hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And as of right now, because the change of use is not as dramatic, we are still maintaining the parking as it was stated previously, where we have the 10 spaces at Centennial Lot, and we are not proposing to make any modifications or changing or additions to that at this time. We did bring this subject up with the park board, and they have indicated some things to consider in regards to considerations or ideas that the zoning board might want to put as far as special conditions to the approval, if that's in case or indeed a thought that might happen, to allow for either rules as far as hours or regulations of what that timing might be, maybe a 2-hour limit. We could look at other things as far as shuttle services or making sure people are aware of the parking locations at Elder. And then the largest plan, which we would not advise to, would be allowing for parking spaces to be the term evades me right now, land banking space are destined for the ability to include additional parking if needed based on whatever parameters might be set for that function. This slide in front of you is basically just an overview of the site, and I kind of color-coded it just so you can understand what we just talked about in writing and what that looks like in actual plan dimensions. So the first one, of course, in red is the existing Dog Beach gate. That's where that's located. That will be that controlled electronic gate by park hours. The off-leash Dog Beach areas, the area proposed in the green, that's the 265-foot Dog Beach area that would be fenced off, utilizing the groins for that fencing. Onto the left of the screen, or the blue area, would be the northern passive beach. So that would be the public beach for non-swimming. Once again, that would be maintained with beach attendants during this beach season, and you would have to have a WNECA pass to gain access to that as well during the beach season. And then, more importantly, the yellow area is showing the 12-foot bypass that allows one to keep walking the shoreline, whether they're proceeding from north to south or south to north, to walk around the off-leash Dog Beach and proceed without having to walk through that active site. Here's some drone images that we took from this morning, so you can see them as they sit today. So on the upper side of the screen, of course, is the South Beach. You can see the taper of the sand there and the way that the gradient is. And on the lower portion of the screen is the North Beach. You can see where the Dog Beach gate, the staircase is near to the left, and as you proceed to the right, you can see where the northern boundary is as you get near the white fence line there. The alternate plan 1, as approved by the park board on February 5th, is what's shown here in front of you. This plan here does indicate the parameters around the Dog Beach area. Once again, I'm not going to go through this in great detail. I go through in greater detail throughout, and Ann's already did a terrific job showing you the limits of this. But once again, we're looking at the Dog Beach, 265 feet of Dog Beach to the south area, utilizing the 2 existing steel groins for the fencing, with approximately 46.5 feet of fencing on the north side, and about 49 feet or 3 inches to the south, with a 10-foot or 12-foot offset from the toe of the bluff. Included in the plan are the construction documents as well. We put together some site fencing plans here. I have these blown up with some cross sections later on, but I want to show you what that plan looks like in its entirety. And similar here, once again, some images that you've already seen. I have these blown up so they're a little bit more legible as well, but this is showing the elevations and the plan view for both the north fence line and the south fence line. Okay, so when we start looking and talk a little bit more about the north fence line, one of the things that we want to make sure that people understand that we took in consideration in this part of this design is to try to maximize the views as much as possible by following the contour of the beach along with the fencing. So as you see in the lower image here on the screen, you'll see the panels that are destined. Their first panel is approximately 10 feet, next one's around 9 foot 1 inches, and those fence panels will step down gradually as they follow the contour of the sand. So the red line is the existing top of wall of the steel groin. The orange or amber line below it is the sand profile, the contour of the beach. The green arrows indicating where the start or the western edge of each one of those panels are, where we set that limit to be no greater than 5 feet. And then we carry that limit across at a level plane to the east, and those step down gradually. As Ann indicated, when you near the edge of the water, where especially on the south side it drops off more significantly, it's a little greater, just under 6 feet in height, with a elevation of fence around 2.5 feet. The purple arrow that's indicated here is again showing you that limit of the last two sections that would be removed during the off-season, once again, November through April, to take in consideration some of those safety concerns. The top half of the screen is showing the plan view, and this is a good representation of the vestibule area or the on-leash, off-leash area of the double gate system at beach level. That again is the electronic key fob operated gate that would be accessed only by those active users that have active passes, as well as the interior gate that then would allow them to access the beach itself, or in this case, the off-leash dog beach area. I would like to note that the survey and all the topography that is on all the plans is a little bit dated. It was from October of 2024. That was our most recent survey at the time. We are contracting to update that survey here in the next couple of weeks, month. But just wanted to point that out. So if there are some concerns around the elevations, this is a snapshot in time. The beach is ever changing, as you'll see with some of my images moving forward on how dramatic that actually is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, being mindful of the evening at hand. But once again, as described previously, this is the step down of those panels as discussed. Once again, looking to maintain that height of no greater than 5 feet on the western edge as we step down the contour towards the lake, following the beach contour itself. So this is the south fence line of the dog beach. So as I explained previously, the intent is the same. We have the red line showing the limits of the seawall. We have the amber line below it showing the topography of the beach. This is the topography of the beach that is on the north side of that groin, not the south side, but the north side of that groin, which is the Park District property. And once again, you'll see those green arrows indicating that step down segmentally through the 5 different panels. Once again, to note that again, these are the step down panels. This is the one that Ann had indicated of nearly 6 feet, 5 feet 11 inches. That would be the furthest point to the right of the screen or to the east, where it's showing the fence panel height of 2 foot 6 inches, but that's on top of the groin itself, which is taller there. Once again, we're following the contour of that sand. So just note that. And then the removal, of course, of the last 20 feet, as we discussed already. The western fence line of the dog beach is proposed at a 5-foot fence height. That is 5 foot total, with 1 foot proposed being buried in the sand. And that is to allow for fluctuating lake levels, or in this case, sand levels. So this way, if the contours were to change and drop, we would not have an exposed area where a dog can easily dig its way under the fence or crawl its way under the fence for that exposure. So you'll see in the cross section that's shown on the screen, we're looking at the 5 feet. 4 feet of that is exposed at the top, and then you have a 1 foot grade below that where we would bury the last remaining foot of that panel. There are no footings designed as part of this. As we've done in the past and we've done successfully, is we'll take the steel post and the terminal post, we'll drive those to refusal and then cut them flush at the elevation that is needed. That way we don't have to install any concrete or introduce any other hazards onto the beach. This is just an overview here. These are photos from 2025. This is showing the center steel groin, or where the north fence line would be installed. The red line is indicating where that would be. The image on the right is kind of a north to south view of the beach. Once again, laying the parameters of the beach itself, the dog beach area. The purple arrows are indicating where the access points would be. Then the red lines are showing where the fence would be installed, either on the groins or that 265-foot run that runs parallel to the seawall at the toe of the bluff. The green arrows indicating the walkable path, or that 12-foot corridor that is designed to allow people to walk around the active dog beach to continue their walk of the shoreline. Here's an aerial view of the north side of the beach from this morning. Once again, reiterating what was kind of stated here. You can see the existing steel, the layout of that vestibule, or that on-leash, off-leash caged area, and then the continuance of the walking path, the 12 feet behind it. You can see the access point of the staircase. So in this case, an individual would come down from the upper parkland, come down the path with their dog on leash, be able to key fob their way into the off-leash area, and then access the site to have their dog run at large and enjoy the dog beach. Here's an image here showing the south side of the site now. The purple line is showing where the image would be, or this way the steel is for the existing steel seawall there. And the red line is an expanded line showing the contour of where the property line is. The image on the left was from 2020, so you can get a comparable for different lake levels and what that looks like. The image on the left, you'll see the steel off to the left and what that looks like, and the slope of the bluff, the slope of the beach and where that is. These are photos from this morning. We went down there and took some measurements. This, where the parks gentleman is standing there, is directly in front of where the access stairs are that were integrated as the natural stone steps for somebody to continue walking the shoreline. So this is the south structure of Centennial, and this is the existing steel structure there. Just want to point out that elevation from the sand to the top of the steel there is 52 inches in height. So when somebody would be walking from south to north, they would walk over that staircase, come up to this ledge, which is 52 inches in height, and then either have to jump down, or what most people do naturally would just take a step to the left, walk to the toe of the bluff, and then walk to the north and continue walking the shoreline. I have some other images from the winter where this grade differential wasn't as dramatic. It was a lot less. So you can see the evolution of what that looks like. Here's an image from the opposing way, once again, taken from this morning. So I'm standing at the base of the steps, and that same individual is now at the beach level, so you can get a better context of what that elevation change is. So that's that 52 inches we just talked about. So where you see the steel, top of the steel wall there, that's where the fencing would be installed, and roughly around this location here, it'd be about 2.5 feet in height, continuing stepping up as you work your way west. So just wanted to kind of point this out and show what that looks like, because this is an area of concern for safety, and we just want to make sure that we're accomplishing not only securing the dog site and making that functional for the community to enjoy, but we're also taking the safety parameters of what that looks like and how we can make that achievable for the community, as well as sustain what Mother Nature might throw at it as well. Here's an image showing what that looks like. Once again, now we're looking from east to west, looking down the property line. When you're looking at that when you're standing at that elevation, on the lower half of the screen or the bottom, you'll see a dimension where the blue arrow goes 1 foot 11 inches. That's the dimension that we have from our surveys that indicate from the edge of the seawall to the property line. The second blue arrow just above that is showing that dimension there, which is 5 feet off the property line. When I went out there this morning, I took a tape measure and I measured from the exposed step that I could, the furthest south exposed step, and I measured to the edge of the steel, and I got 152 inches and change, basically a little over 13 or 12 feet around 8 inches in distance. So once again, that's the 1 foot 11 inches plus the 10 feet that we said approximately to the step. So you have essentially the 2 feet, or in this case, 1 foot 11 inches that is still on Park District property, and then you have the additional 10 feet plus where you would gain access to the first step. This one helps clear that up in regards to what that sliver looks like. This is an elevated drone shot, once again looking from east to west. At approximate elevation, I would estimate around 50 feet and probably about 70 feet out near the end of the steel. And you can see the yellow dotted line is where the property line would bisect the steel, existing steel seawall. The red line is overlaid to show where the proposed fencing would go. And then the green line is to indicate that path of access for an individual to keep traversing the shoreline. So once again, at that location, you can see myself and my other parks crew members standing on the beach. That is the area just in front of that 52-inch drop-off that we showed you previously. So once again, you would walk over the natural stone steps as they were approved by both the IDNR and the Army Corps of Engineers and the Village of Winnetka as well for the access path over that structure. You would then get onto the built-up sand elevation there between their structure and the steel seawall, and then be able to traverse all the way back to the corridor that's created with that 12-foot bypass. We felt this was an elegant way to achieve our safety concerns, as well as allow access and maintain all the standards that we need to for Cook County, Army Corps, and everybody as it relates to the functions of our beach. This elevation photo was taken about 2 weeks ago, and this is, once again, you can kind of see the differential. This photo was taken from the north looking south. The red line is to indicate the 12-foot bypass area. That same parks employee is standing 12 feet off of the seawall. We measured that out with the tape measure. And you can see that in relationship to where the red arrow is pointing down of the access staircase. And that is that same staircase we saw in the previous photo to gain access south of the Centennial property. The blue arrow on the left is showing that elevation change from about 2 weeks ago. That distance was maybe 3 feet or so, and in that 2 weeks, it gained in depth. So just something to be mindful of is the ever-changing conditions of the lake and that area for northeast storm events. From here, I'm going to turn it back over to Hal. He's going to walk through a few things for public trust and then go through the public use standards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Costa. Just to follow up on the last slides that Costa was talking about, a very limited discussion of the public trust doctrine, which you've already heard reference to. What we wanted to do is next show you, and this was something that was also referred to in some of the public, some of the correspondence that's in your packet that you received from members of the public. Without going into too much details, these are the permit conditions for the permit that was issued to the owner of the 205 Sheridan Road property. If you look at this, and again, this was also referred to in public correspondence, if you look at the IDNR permits, they specifically, and the village permit that was issued for the for the improvements on 205, they specifically contemplate the ability to continually access the shoreline, and obviously that's the reason the stairs were put in over the groin. The permit conditions make it very clear, you know, that accreted sand and what is public trust. It doesn't say this is or this isn't, and we're not here to resolve that issue either tonight. But it was clear that the concept was to allow for continued public passage over those stairs and beyond in both directions. So what we've tried to do with the current plan, and if you go back, if an individual were to walk straight, as Costa said before, from south to north, you know, this is what they would be confronted with. To go straight across would not be really feasible. So it seems to us intuitive that, you know, the direction that's being discussed with the current plan would be to bring people over the stairs and then to head west so that they could go to that bypass area and safely continue their walk along the shoreline. So I think that what's being proposed is consistent with previously issued permits, both, like I said, by IDNR and the village. You know, this is the general permit. The permit that was obtained by the owner of the 205 Sheridan Road property was a general permit from the Army Corps, and it just identified that, you know, certain parts of the lakefront area, accreted sands, would be available for public access. But again, as you can see here with the directional arrows and the other slide that I had just made reference to, that really the proposed route of access makes the most sense in terms of public safety. So very quickly, for the reasons that we've identified, we think that the proposal to have a smaller dog beach, a completely enclosed dog beach, and one that is controlled by fob access will further safety for swimmers at Elder Beach. With the proposed bypass, it furthers safety of people who want to cross the beach but not be necessarily dealing with dogs running off leash, which was a concern expressed in prior meetings. And then finally, we think that, as I just described, that the proposal to turn people that are heading north to the west, or people that are heading south, to have them turn east and then over and not go straight across that groin, and the 52-inch drop that Costa was referring to does in fact further public safety. We've indicated before that we think that by having the bypass, having the beach in this location, it will actually further and protect surrounding property owners and their properties. I think, as we say here, you know, the dog beach has operated for 30 years, I think, altogether, and property values in the immediate vicinity have not suffered because of that. We don't believe that the dog beach will adversely impact the use of the rest of Centennial Beach or other properties in the area. As it says here, history confirms that there's been adequate utilities and parking, and as Costa said, there'll be ways to monitor the parking, the existing parking at Centennial Park, and ways to determine and address if there does become a parking issue. We note that no comments were received from Public Works or police relative to parking concerns or utility concerns. Again, not to be redundant, we think that the bypass addresses pedestrian access and safety concerns there. As it says here, you received your staff report. There were no concerns about safety or ingress and egress from either police or fire. Fire department did have one concern about getting ability to get access to one part of the plan, which the Park District will be able to accommodate. And then finally, the special use conforms to the requirements of the zoning ordinance and all other village codes and ordinances. As we indicated, you know, we're not asking, the Park District is not asking for any variations. The IDNR and the Army Corps already issued permits for a larger plan, a plan that didn't even have the bypass, and a much broader plan. We still have to go back to them, obviously, with review of the alternate one. But we feel good about the fact that the larger plan did get permitted by IDNR and Army Corps. And so, you know, that really concludes our presentation. We appreciate you letting us run through that fairly long presentation. We do think this is a great plan that responds to all the comments we've heard from you, the Plan Commission, from members of the public over time. Based on the plan you saw tonight, and if you look at some of the correspondence, again, that you received from the public, we think should the village approve this plan and should it be implemented, this dog beach, as compared to the other dog beaches up and down Lake Michigan, this will become, I think, the gold standard for dog beaches in terms of affording access, providing safety in all different respects. And we hope you recommend approval of the plan.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate it. Really do appreciate the time. Excuse me. The presentation slides, very well done. Appreciate the drone shots from today. Really helpful stuff. You're done in terms of, okay. So why don't we, we'll open up to public comment at this time, and then, well, actually, no. Do we want to have any questions for the applicant before we go into, should I do it that way? Should we do questions for applicant before? Otherwise, would you guys benefit from public comment? Okay. Why don't we just have a few questions here and now, and then we'll move into public comment. Okay. Everyone knows our standards. Does anyone want to shoot first? I've got a slew, but I'll cede the floor. Anyone want to go? Brave soul. Anyone? Lynn? Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions on the usage. You said there are currently an average of 30 users a day. Is that with a pass?
Peak season.
Peak season, sorry, peak season. With a pass?
Yeah, so peak season, that's the average users. It was about 31 with passes. Those are all recorded pass entries. We don't have any unrecorded pass entries.
Okay,
So-
and that's like, does it distinguish between like somebody coming back and forth, like the same person? I mean, you don't, I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
so our data, the way we collect it, is every entry in and out is recorded. So
Okay.
we took that data, decompressed it down, and we made sure, because they track in with a timestamp, they
Yeah.
track out with a timestamp, and each individual pass has a corresponding number.
Okay.
So those two entries means one access point. So
Okay.
they track in and they track out. So
Okay.
yes, it's one on average of what that is.
And currently, right now, it's required that they have to have a leash.
Yes, that is correct. The
And-
ordinance 596 requires anybody who utilizes Centennial Beach to be on leash.
And there's a sign that says that. Is there any other enforcement?
There are two signs that say that you are correct. Enforcement besides staff, I know this morning I informed two people that were down there off leash. They both came into compliance with their dogs on leash. One left and one enjoyed the park still. We don't enforce at this point in time. There was discussion at the last board meeting on the next steps on how to proceed with that. Staff, along with our council, is looking into different options, and we're going to be bringing those options back to the park board for consideration in the near future.
And aren't almost all Winnetka parks, with the exception of a very few, considered on-leash dog parks?
Yeah, in that ordinance, it calls out which sites those are. Any park site that has a playground does not permit dogs on leash. So essentially, any park facility that does not have a playground can be utilized on leash and accessible by the community.
So, just so I'm understanding it, they have a beach pass, but it's really to get to the beach, but it's really not, I mean, you can have your dog on leash at any park that doesn't have a playground.
That is correct. The intent of the use of Centennial Dog Beach previously was off-leash. And to maintain that standard, there's a vaccination record that you have to complete and
Right.
receive the pass. And that area was destined for the purpose of those, in this case for last year, the 390 people that purchased passes. So yes, to access the site, you would need to buy a pass from the park district. For the non-beach area or the non-dog park area to the north as it's proposed, during season, you would have to have a beach pass. Off-season, you would not. It would be open for the public to use from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Can the public access Centennial Beach now? If
They
you-
can if they walk down from a different site. They cannot access it if they try to gain access through Centennial Park itself. The gate is locked and only accessible to current key fob holders.
So they could get to it from Elder by walking along the water?
Anybody who's walking the shoreline could traverse the beach or stay at the beach, but you cannot access it currently from the top of the bluff, yes.
Okay, and then, I In your, and there hasn't been a fence there since 2016, except for maybe a little bit.
2015-ish.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the few days it was installed in
Okay.
January, I wouldn't count
And then you had
those.
to take it down.
Right.
And I do remember there was some time, so I'm hoping you can refresh my memory, of a dog park that was not going to be at the beach, and it was going to be over at the park by, whatever that park is called, by Skokie School. Do you remember that?
2018, yeah, I led the charge for that. I've been with the Park District for some time. There was many of us that were involved in that project, but yes, we identified three sites at the time. The one site was Coral Island Woods. There was going to be a section near the woodland area off of Euclid that was identified. I forget the acreage. I think it was about 1.1 or 1.2 acres. There was going to be a location at West Elm Park is the other one that you identified here as well.
Okay.
And then the third site was just adjacent to the Public Works yards. There is a lower tiered bluff section that comes off of the front side of the landfill or the north side of the landfill that we had identified as an opportunity for an off-leash dog park that was not on the beach, yes.
Okay, so there were three sites that were not going to be on the beach.
That we had identified, and at that time, when the park board decided to try to move any of those sites forward, it got halted pretty quick by people that surrounded those areas in the community.
Okay. So the push wasn't necessarily that we have to have a dog park at the beach, but that people wanted not to have a dog park in their backyard.
People wanted both the beach and an off-beach dog park as well, because some people like the beach aspect, but some people don't with the sand and the smell that comes along with that of wet dog.
Yeah.
To have an off-leash dog run somewhere else in the community, and that's the way it was approached.
Okay. Has the park district since, what was that, 2018?
Roughly 2018.
Have they considered, given this conversation about Centennial Beach and revamping Centennial Beach and Elder Beach and all of that as part of your master planning, has the idea of not putting the dog park on the beach come back up again?
During the Lakefront Master Plan, the dog beach actually was removed from the plan. It wasn't until later that it came back in the community when we were moving forward some aspects of the plan to move forward. I forget the exact month, but in 2021, that's when the park board suggested, okay, let's put together a committee to identify other locations for a dog beach other than Centennial Park, whether that be Elder, Maple, Lloyd, or Tower. Towers one that came into the conversation and was researched even further. There was an opportunity to work with the village at that time in regards to the village property of Tower Road Beach, which is kind of bifurcated. About half the beach is owned by the village of Winnetka, the other half is by the park district, to utilize that southern cell adjacent to the parking lot or the seawall, the pier, for that purpose. That information was vetted out, brought back to the park board, and at that time, they voted to maintain the beach as is with limitations no greater than 270 feet, no less than 170 feet, and to maintain it on the south side of Centennial Park, or Centennial Beach.
And that was when? You said 2021?
That was 2022. I believe it was October of 2022 when the park board motioned that to move forward in that capacity. But it was 2021 when the advisory committee was put together and established.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Take a break. Anyone else down this row? Icon?
Let me ask a couple along these lines, just because we're talking about beat passes and dog passes. So 30 at the height, and what was it, somewhere on?
5 in the low during the
Can you
winter
go back
months.
to that slide?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So about a little more than 30 during peak and 15 during the shoulder periods. Did you maintain any statistics as to how long a person with a dog was at the beach? If 15 people went, were they there for an hour, a half hour, 4 hours? Any ideas?
So for my rough review, and I did not look at that to drive the numbers, I was just looking at the usage totals, not the average length of time. But when you're looking through the data, you can't help to see some people would be there low, it's 20, 30 minutes. Some people there be a few hours. So I can estimate that maybe it's an hour, hour and a half is the usage, but that's an estimate. That's a best guess at this point. I don't have exact figures to give you on that.
Okay. Once a fence is completely installed versus something that people can traverse the water, that area then becomes an exclusive area for those 300, 275 to 350, whatever the number is, of pass owners, correct? Because you don't go in there unless you have a dog pass.
Yeah, the average would be 385, but yes, that
Okay.
would be exclusive for those users for that space.
Okay.
That's approximately 11% of Winnetka Park District-owned shoreline.
Okay. And that's approximately 2.5% of the Winnetka residents then, if you look at the population of some 12,500, somewhere in that range, right?
That's probably a little skewed because that also includes on average of 75 non-resident users as well, so.
Okay, so it would be maybe a lower percentage.
Potentially a little lower
Might be more like 2%. And then another percentage from outside Winnetka would then have exclusive rights to that area.
But just remember, that's the only off-leash, or we're proposing the only off-leash place or area in the
Understood.
community to be used.
Understood. And then with respect to the double gates that you were talking about, does the Park District intend to man those gates from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
So the gate at the top of the bluff would be electronically controlled time release. So at 6 a.m., it would unlock and open, and then somebody could traverse, go down and up, and enjoy the beach whenever. At 10 o'clock, that would close. The beach level gate would be controlled always by a fob system. So the individual would have to have their fob. They'd go up to the gate to access it. It would unlock, and then they would gain entry. And that's the only way you would be able to gain entry. Those would not be staffed. It's electronically key card controlled with that fob system. That's how it's managed.
So I'm trying to recall what you said, Costa, about the need to have the double gates because you wanted to have a staging area where you could check people's vaccinations and make sure that they were letting a dog in that had been appropriately approved and had all their shots or whatever that is. Is that what I heard you say?
It's a requirement of Cook County Department of Animal Rabies Controls, which I brought this slide up for. If you look at the second bullet point, that is the driver for this, the need of the double gate entry.
But there's nobody manning that double gate. I mean, one person goes through one gate, goes through another. There's no TSA for dogs that's checking their papers or anything like that to see that they.
The only way that you would get in is to get issued a fob, and that would come through the park district. So somebody would have to fill out the application, and that application is then verified by their vet records that has been completed. They would then be issued that fob.
Gotcha.
That gives that person, that grants them access to that gate, and then it's self-managed. The interior gate would be automatic self-closing, so this way somebody would get in, they would off-leash, or they can off-leash in the dog park itself. But what you're trying to limit is somebody opening the gate, and there's another dog who is uncontrolled, or their owner might not have control of them, and they
Gotcha.
run out at large. That's what
that
you're
makes sense.
controlling.
That makes sense. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, if you recall, or some of you may recall, the original plan was to have just the controlled access gate at the top, and then to have the enclosures on the beach with gates that anybody could walk through to sort of address your concern, Member Haller. And so, but then what we heard was, well, then you have to go through the dog beach, and what about people who don't want to go through the dog beach, which is what led to the bypass discussion, to give people the option of being able to not have to go through the dog beach. So what the Park District is trying to do is balance these competing interests, saying if you don't want to walk through, then you can do this
Sure, yeah, I get
bypass.
it.
But then the question becomes, so why lock the gate down below if you've now created the bypass? And it's because of what Costa said. The county regulations say the gate down below has to be secured. So
Got it.
that, okay.
Got it. And then, Costa, can you remind me that on the south end, the groin or the steel wall that's there that was pictured, can you remind me when that was created and by whom?
The steel structure itself,
Yes.
I don't have any information to date that. The records that we have go back to the 50s, and it was already installed prior to that.
Gotcha.
I can't tell you specifically who installed it or at what time.
Gotcha.
But you're talking about the structure here that we indicated as the south
That you're going to put the
perimeter.
fence on,
Correct.
basically? Okay. And so people will have to walk on the south residence private property or will naturally walk on the south property's private property up as high as, 10, 15 feet from the seawall there in order to access the stairs, right? I mean, it's unlikely that you're going to walk within right up against the fence necessarily, right?
Yeah, and as Hal pointed out, with the requirements of the previous permits that were submitted and approved for the south resident, it's indicated in there as part of the Army Corps' approvals, as part of the IDNR's approvals, that access to those stairs that have been permitted needs to be maintained. So one would argue that the point here, if you have a 52-inch obstruction, that's not going to be the normal path that people will travel. They will
Sure.
naturally walk around that anyway. We're just proposing that now instead of walking around wherever that fluctuating sand might be, we're able to complete and meet the requirements for the dog beach, as well as have the ability for somebody to walk around the dog beach and not have to walk through that active zone.
Gotcha.
So we feel comfortable that the proposed plan and everything that we know to date would permit that.
Okay. And the sign that I saw in the picture there that was on the south property saying that it was private property, does that say?
So all signage will be reassessed and readdressed in regards to access. So
Well,
if
that
we
was
need
on
to
the other
adjust
person's
that,
property, so
what's that?
that sign, I think that signs indicating that it was private property was on the south person's.
That was a Park District sign that was
Oh, that's a
installed
Park
on
District
Park
sign.
District property
I
back
see.
in, I want to say it was probably around 2022, 2023-ish. Don't quote me on that. I'm going off of memory. But it says, no trespassing private property. And then 2 lines below that, it says, I believe something to the extent that, walking the ordinary hot water mark is permittable. Don't stop or stand, for a long period of time. Something to that extent, saying that, yes, you can continue, but you have to follow what is known as the ordinary water mark or the ordinary water line.
Okay.
And I should have brought that up in regards to the signage. I apologize, but we will work with the village to make sure whatever we need to be put in place is appropriate and in coordinates with all regulations.
Okay. I'm going to take a break here. I wanted to come on with Lynn
Yeah,
because I
great.
had some related questions, but I may have others, but I'd like to give others a chance.
Awesome, thanks. Mike, do you want to take us, do you have any questions while we're on that side? All right. This side, questions?
I just have one follow-up question. Once you're in the locked dog beach area, do you need to use your fob to get the gate open to leave?
So what we've done in the existing gate is we have a bypass button. So this way, if somebody was to get into that zone, maybe they wash up on a paddle boat or something else and they need to get passed through, there's an interior button that you could push that would basically desensitize or deactivate the magnet that holds the gate shut, and you would be able to leave. So you would not need to fob in or excuse me, you would not be required to fob out. You can push the button to access out.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the modular removable fencing.
Sure.
So my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the normal water line, the fence basically goes out until that point and it does not continue over the water on top of the groin past the normal water line.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Okay. So the chain link fence goes out to roughly the normal water line. Is that correct?
The reason that we chose the fencing location where we stopped it was because of the barrier height, not necessarily the limits of the ordinary high water mark at
Interesting.
that
So it's a
elevation of
coincidence.
581.5. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah,
yes.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wondered, so obviously when you're in a high water situation, which is what, roughly half the time the water's higher than the normal water line around here, is my understanding, in terms of the cycles. Did you consider removing the fence portions up to what would be the high water mark at that time in order to preserve the enjoyment of views and the enjoyment of the beach users?
So basically as I understand it, the question is, would the Park District consider relocating the end of the fence or the eastern boundary to that ordinary high water mark to preserve the views and vistas for the community. Is that
I was curious if that
question?
had been considered.
our consideration were driven, or is driven by the requirements of Cook County for fencing and what we've identified as a minimum height of 4 feet to accomplish that containment. That's the driving aspect of it. The views, as far as stepping that down, was part of it. Instead of just carrying 4 feet across, we wanted to be mindful of what that looks like overall. So that's the reason we've stepped the fence panels down to maintain the contour of the beach and follow that contour instead of just having something arbitrary of carrying 4 feet across. So when you're standing on the beach, that elevation is still to be held, where you could still, pending how tall you are, you should be able to see over the fence.
Okay, thank you.
You guys good down there? Anyone mind if I ask a few questions? Okay. Hi, Costa. When was the last time the Winnetka Park District ran a formal survey of the community for feedback
For what perspective?
in all respects, to get feedback from the village residents on?
We just completed our comprehensive master plan, which had extensive community engagement, had an online resource. We had statistically valid surveys that were conducted as part of that as well. And so literally last year.
Okay, so the information that you've been gathering, there's also participation in the caucus survey, right?
Yes.
As far as the plank of the Park District Board and what its objectives ought be. So is the last time the caucus survey was circulated, was it 2024? Is it the last time that the caucus community
that April?
spoke to those issues?
I believe it's annually in April, so
Annually
yeah,
in
so it would have been April 25.
So there would have been, April 2025.
I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I believe that's nearing the time.
Is there, I guess, I'd like to hear definitively that you have feedback from the village that the dog beach or an off-leash dog beach has been identified by the village who has participated in the survey as one of the top priorities for the Park District. I'd like to hear whether or not that's been completed or whether or not this is proceeding under, pattern and practice of the board or what may have been decided from Jeffersonian dinners or open houses from the past. I want to understand what data might be driving the current conversations around the need from the public's perspective for an off-leash dog beach.
Sure. So as I indicated earlier, through the original master plan, the dog beach did come out. And when this came forward with implementation for other aspects, we heard loud and clear from the community. I can't tell you exactly how many people showed up, but they came in there with a plan to get the dog beach reinstalled. They wanted it, they want to drive it, they want to maintain it, and that's what we heard loud and clear. And over the last 5 years, through plan development for the Elder Centennial Park and the development of those sites, it's been a consistent theme to maintain a dog beach in the community, to the point where we put together, as I indicated earlier, a community-driven or team, commission, if you will, to identify the best locations for that. That information was pushed forward and is continued to push forward through this date. Shannon was able to pull up a little reference here. Hang on 1 second, apologize.
And to be sure, this isn't a gotcha. I'm just trying to understand
no, you wanna
what
understand.
you've got wonderful slides on the data of the roughly 380 residents and non-residents who use it. I've got a 2024 caucus survey that does not have the off-leash dog beach as a priority issue. The pool tends to be the thing that most people voted on, whether or not we could have an indoor and outdoor pool. I do see 22% of the caucus participants said that they were prioritizing a non-beach off-leash dog park. I'm just trying to understand what may still be driving the need to preserve and protect the beach dog off-leash.
Yeah, so it's focus area 1 of improved beachfront parks. Planning considerations for that was one of the drivers through the Winnetka Park District Comprehensive Plan. That was one of our, literally as of last year, that helped drive the fact of these different elements.
But
And one of
that's
those
an
elements-
internal document that you guys, I'm part of the plan commission. We create the plan commission, the 2040
Understood.
plan.
but that is driven by the information that we reached out to the public in regards to the special user groups, in regards to the community outreach, in regards to the open houses, the statistically driven survey that was issued and sent out to the mailing to the masses in the community.
Got it.
There's a lot of factual information, a lot of input that drove the findings of the comprehensive master plan to render it as far as priorities to the community. This was not driven by staff and staff's perspective. This was driven by the community and its perspective.
Okay, and so of those, sure.
Well, just as I'm looking at your engagement report as part of your master plan that was put together with your survey questions. And unless I'm reading this wrong, the off-leash dog park did not, only 19% ranked it as one of the top 4 most important amenities. So number 1, 2, 3, or 4 only got 19%. So, and that's just what I'm seeing off of your report. And
Sure.
Public beaches was number 1 for sure, followed
really-
by outdoor swimming.
Yeah, I really did not mean this as a gotcha. I was just
Right.
trying to establish
And that-
what the current data and thinking is of the public, because frankly, not a lot of them come to these meetings to vociferously tell us how important it is that the dog beach stay where it is. And we know the data that you've provided, 380 or so people are using it, and we heard from Mark what percentage of the village that represents. Can we talk about the passive?
If I can go back to the
Yeah.
point, though, in regards to the information, as it was indicated, Commissioner Hanley, the beaches were identified.
Yeah.
The park, the Centennial site, which is nearly 540 feet in its entirety, was the Centennial Dog Beach. We've now bifurcated that in half, and we've reduced our size from a 20% profile of all of Winnetka Park District beaches that was going to the dogs, if you will, down to 11% to 265 feet. So we've addressed 2 things in that same fold. We've now given back essentially 10% back to the public to use it as passive beach, and we've maintained a standard from what we've heard to the community that we still want to maintain an off-leash dog beach area. We don't have space in our parks. Every time that we try to engage that, people come out of the woodwork
Right.
to say no.
Right.
Well, here's an opportunity that is already existing. We've reduced it. We met all the criteria in regards to the regulations. We've gone through permitting with our initial plan, have received approval from both the state and federal regulations.
Sure.
Hopefully, we can do that yet again, but we just have to work our way through the village to make sure that we meet the village's standards as well. And
No,
we're trying to do that, and we feel that we've done that through this new adopted alternate 1 plan.
Obviously, that was changed in the course of the last 35 days. So to
Understood.
the extent you're driving new information that's prompting you to reduce the size of the dog beach from the 490 feet it was to the 265, that's not born up of the conversations, the town halls, and everything you've been having over the 5-6 years that you were developing the beach plan. It's as a result of some of the feedback you've been receiving from these
That's derived by the community input the board has received over the last several years. And as I stated earlier, it was at the October 2022 meeting that the park board established the size of the dog beach and to maintain Centennial Beach specifically the southern 270 feet as a dog
Costa,
beach.
the last proposal that was submitted to this board for review had a dog beach of 490 feet.
That was correct, because as you recall, when we presented to the Plan Commission, you were sitting there as the liaison.
Right.
We presented that as a temporary plan as moving forward until we would come back with the master plan for the combined Elder Centennial site.
Okay.
Since we were out, suggested that, no, don't look at temporary, what are you going to plan and what are you going to permit? We've taken that in consideration as well. So this moving forward meets all those conditions that was given by the park board as direction to staff, and we've conformed to those standards by reducing the site from the overall to what it is now at 265 feet.
Okay. In so doing, the board has decided to implement a passive beach on the north end of Centennial. Can you tell me the precedent for passive beaches in Winnetka?
So any Winnetka beach is considered a passive beach off-season. So if you think of Tower, Lloyd, Maple,
Okay.
Elder, off-season, they're all passive beaches. So the precedent is set that all of our beaches are passive except during season.
Yeah.
And the reason that we didn't operate it as, or suggest to operate as a swimming beach was not only the cost of the staff and the personnel, which is, I'm going to estimate around $85,000 to do that. you have a swimming beach that's already established with bathrooms 70 feet to the north of that site with adequate parking for a designated swimming beach. We're going to have a larger draw in the community. So that's why it was decided, based on staff's suggestion, Park Board's ultimate decision and approval to motion to utilize that as a passive beach with season pass holders to utilize that during season and to accompany that with our beach attendants to monitor that it's being used as intended.
Is this meant to be temporary as you develop plans for Elder and now the north part of Centennial? Because the prior master plan for the Centennial Beach that we looked at, that a lot of time and energy was put into, that had the pier going out into the water, had a dog beach on the south, and had a swimming beach on the north. So I'm trying to understand why the swimming beach is now gone. The dog beach is there. So the plan that got denied in the sort of grand visioning before that we recommended against, in large part because of safety concerns, we're now saying we're still going to activate that end of the beach, but we're just not going to let people in the water. So literally the dogs can swim in Centennial Beach, but the people can't. That's effectively what we've got here as a proposal.
So the special use permit at hand is identified for the limits of the plan that we're putting into practice, or we're looking to try to put into practice. What the park district and we continue to decide as we move forward, that's ultimately up to the park board to give staff direction on that. We have been told to pause in regards to our planning efforts as it relates to the larger plan, and that's where we're at right now. We are still working through that concept, but I can't tell you that concept's going to be ready and we're going to come back in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I don't know.
Okay.
As you indicated, there's competing ideas that came through the comprehensive master plan.
Right.
And the park board's going to need to tell staff on how to direct us to move forward with our capital dollars. At this point, our direction, as we've been approved by the park board to move forward with, is the plan you have in front of you this evening.
Okay. So the beach will be split, passive activity on the north end, sitting on the beach, looking at the water, and then dogs in the cage to the south. So the
With
same
the bypass as discussed, yes.
Right. So help me understand from the safety perspective how we're not relitigating the issues that were before us when we looked at the larger Centennial project that had the pier. We still have a choke point or a bottle point whereby now you're encouraging citizens, children, albeit not swimmers, to navigate down to the north passive beach in the same way that dog owners are bringing their pets up and down this single access point to gain entrance to the beach. Do I have that right? We're all going to navigate from the same access point, whether you're going north to chill on the beach or you're going south to play in the pen. You're all coming up the same chute, right?
This staircase is the point of access to Centennial Park.
So-
that doesn't preclude somebody from accessing from Elder Lane, coming down to Centennial. As I said, during season, we're going to have beach attendants there that can help mitigate some of those concerns. But they are accessing through a sole staircase that is identified.
Well, and also, they're subject to Winnetka law, which requires those dogs to be on leash at that point.
Counselor, it's not a question as to whether or not somebody is compliant with the ordinance and the law of having the dog on leash. We're going up and down a single stair together. I'm going down with my child. You're bringing your dog up the same area.
Same thing that happens on public sidewalks in town.
Again, it's whether or not we're saying that that special use is not creating public harm or safety concerns, whereby it wouldn't if we were otherwise deciding that the dog beach not be there or that the people not be there. Having these two groups commingled together creates an inherent risk that I'm not sure you've sufficiently laid off, as I'm understanding the way in which this is supposed to go. So that's why I'm asking the question. I'm not saying I'm of a mind that it's definitively there. I'm trying to be probative as to whether or not the plan as presented here obviates the concerns I have about public safety as it relates to the activation of a passive beach on the north end of it.
So-
It's the
so
same
it-
concerns I had when it was a pier.
So if it was not open at all, it would obviate your concern, the
There
north
wouldn't-
end?
You would just have dogs there, right? You would
No,
just
on
have,
the north end, if it wasn't a passive beach, it was just closed, that would obviate that concern.
if you want to if you want to say that we are going to close the north end of Centennial Beach, we're not going to have it activated, passive or otherwise, so that we can give to 2% of the Winnetka population 11% of our shoreline, so that 30 times a day, they can bring their dogs down there. If that's the position that you want to take,
Let me just say this. A couple of things. In response to the 2% or 2.3%, a lot of emphasis is placed on what the caucus does and what the caucus says. My understanding is the population of Winnetka is 12,500 plus or minus, and in the last caucus, there were 700 participants, okay? About 5%.
sure.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, we're all here this evening because, as I'm sure your council has told you, 40 years ago, the Illinois Supreme Court said that park districts are subject to local zoning regulations. That same court case made it very clear that a village in the implementation of their administration of their zoning ordinance is not entitled to thwart, these were the words the court used, thwart or frustrate the park district's efforts to do what the statute requires them to do in terms of meeting the recreational needs of the community. My only point being is, in administering the special use standards here, it's my opinion, respectfully, that it is not for the zoning board, the village council, or the plant commission to replace the judgment of the park district board. That's not the role of the zoning ordinance.
Okay. My counselor, I'll keep going with the questions. I don't want to go down a theoretical exercise. Can we talk about the south fence placement for a second? Obviously, we had the ability to look at, yeah, one of your pictures from today would be great. Yeah, either one, great. So we did have the proposal that was submitted for our February meeting that we were prepared to review. That has the south fence at least 20 feet further in set to the present placement here. My understanding is that we moved it back to the wall for safety concerns because once you come over those steps, if that fence isn't there, there's a chance that somebody is going to take a whoopsie-daisy right over the side. That's what's driving the move back towards,
That's one of them.
okay.
But the Park District always had a concern if we were to inset the south property to 20 feet, as you could see with some of the other images. Let me see here. I thought I had one here. With the amount of ice and snow buildup, the chance and risk of that fence being damaged greatly is there, and there would be a lot cost for maintenance and to replace that fence as well. So that was something that we took an opportunity to reduce our risk and utilize something that's existing that has seen what Mother Nature can do and has sustained it, and utilize that as our foundation moving forward, especially as we heard from the community that people are going to get trapped in this dead zone. They were going to bash against the rocks, even though there's physically no rocks there, it's a steel wall. We were trying to consider everything and anything that we've heard to adopt a plan that we felt that the Winnetka community could get behind and support for safety, for requirements, for all the regulations, everything that we need to do to be in compliance. We felt this was the most tasteful way to accomplish that.
Okay. So the reason why the fence moved back from the packet, the plan that we were supposed to review in February, and to the amended of option one that the park board selected in their special meeting, was largely driven by the safety concerns.
Safety is
and the maintenance
forefront,
of the fence, effectively.
Safety being the priority, yes.
Okay. And in this instance, if when the fence goes up there, because they have to pass at the ordinary high water mark where the stair has now been placed, there is legally a way that they'll stay on public land and or then navigate onto Park District land if they were to, perfectly walk the parallel off of those steps until they hit the 1.5, or I'm sorry, nearly 2 feet of space at there and then went north. But common sense says people are going to turn and just walk on the sand, whether it's ours by way of the accretive sand on the non-natural occurring implement that the Ishbias have put there or not. Do you have any concern that we would be effectively passing a special use that will facilitate you know, the pattern and practice of trespassing on private land if you don't have an easement from the owner for that.
If that was a concern, you could make it a condition that, that the owner, first of all, as I said earlier.
Well, I just don't understand how
I
we're gonna.
don't, the legal aspects of that, I don't think are appropriate at the zoning hearing, but if that's a concern of yours, you could address it by saying,
Well, as
and
I
this is
speak-
done often, it's the approval, if the village council approves it, is conditioned on getting an easement over that land.
I mean, our final standard, sorry to disagree with you, but our final standard is that in all other respects conforms to the regulations of this and other village ordinances and codes. Trespassing would be one of those codes. And if we are passing a special use that by passing it is going to require people to trespass on private property in order to navigate it, while I appreciate the concerns in bringing the fence south, bringing it further north would create that, would obviate that issue, would it not?
But I would direct you to, Mr. Chairman, to other provisions in your ordinance that says when you're considering a special use, which is what we're doing,
Yeah.
you have the right to impose conditions on the special use.
Okay.
So as I just said, you could condition the special use on obtaining an easement from the neighboring property owner.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, this issue that you're raising right now, it wasn't brought to your attention or the village's attention by this application. The village already issued a permit for those stairs in that groin, and so did the IDNR.
I'm
So
not
didn't-
concerned about the stairs. I'm concerned about
No,
how
no, no,
people
but the
navigate.
exit, the village and the IDNR already permitted what you're looking at.
I understand that.
Okay, so didn't that issue as to how they were going to continue the shoreline access already exist?
Shoreline access is an east-west. In order to get access to it, you have to travel east-west. If they do so on public land or on Park District land,
But
we don't have a
as you-
trespass.
But as you saw by the pictures tonight, if they didn't go west,
If they went
pursuant-
north, they'd fall off a cliff, right? We know that.
Exactly.
Exactly right. We
So isn't this application actually furthering public safety? Especially if you say, like you just said, common sense tells you people are going to turn left.
Common sense could tell me that they are going to turn left, and common sense would tell me if they go all the way forward to the fence, they're probably going to be legally not trespassing.
What-
But common sense would tell me a lot of things that I don't
Right,
have tonight.
but the way the village approved the permit and the IDNR approved the permit calls for people, if they're going to stay on accreted land or public land, to take a 4.5-foot drop over the existing groin.
I completely understand.
So
This is not
was an
Florida.
issue-
It's not unlikely that
this was
people are
an
going to
issue
walk
that
that.
was This was an issue that was previously ignored by other governing bodies, okay, which is now being addressed.
Yeah.
And like I said, all you have to do, I have no idea what the next door neighbor, I've never talked to the next door neighbor, okay? And I've never met him. But all you have to do is say, if this goes forward, you have to get an easement from that property owner,
Sure.
which they'll either say yes to or no to. And like Costa said before, right now, there's a sign which is not on the neighbor's property. That's a Park District sign, which probably needs to be moved and rewritten because of the way it's written right now.
Yeah.
And it could be.
Okay.
That could be a condition to approval as well.
I'm going to,
Just real quick, has the Park District requested that easement?
What?
Has the Park District requested from the property owner to the south that easement?
No, but we will if you make it a condition to approval.
Well, I know, but you applied, so you have not requested the easement.
No.
Okay.
No.
okay. 2 more questions, and I'm going to shut up. Parking. So we haven't really talked about it, but it's the same issue that we had concern of when the north end of the Centennial Beach was being activated under the prior plan, the sort of competing groups. There's a limited number of parking spaces there already. How do you imagine adding this passive north end of the beach is going to drive resident engagement, non-resident engagement to that area? What's your sort of general sense in the near term? I know we're not going to have, because it's not a swimming beach, you're not going to have as many people as you would in that scenario. But is there an ability, is there a way for you to estimate the increase of users plus cars into that area?
So we do have some data from last year. Kimberly Horn, who is one of our third-party consultants, did track some data for us at the beach sites. Unfortunately, that data is skewed for Elder and Centennial because Elder was closed,
Yeah.
so we couldn't get a true snapshot of what that is.
Yeah.
We are engaged with continue that traffic study in 2026 here, so we'll have some more information to come from that. The majority of the people who utilize the Winnetka shoreline and our beaches, residents, a lot of them walk, bike, what have you. They passively get to the beach without an automobile. Some of them do, you know, maybe they got strollers or a lot of play equipment with their kids, what have you. They're not toting the wagon behind them. They'll drive there. Our interpretation of the use of that site is to maintain it as it is, and we don't feel that it's going to be a big draw for the community. Now, could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. If I did, probably wouldn't be here right now. But as we continue to move forward, we will monitor this. And as Hal indicated before, if you want to condition this in regards to whether it's we identify that if there's so many complaints that the police receive in regards to parking to the adjacent seats or streets, or if there's a limitation, maybe you take a look at hours for people that are parked there more often in frequency and drop that hour to maybe a 2-hour parking limit or something to that extent. Or we could look at a shuttle service or a
Sure, all those things
land
you
ba-
mentioned, right, okay.
Something. There's different ways to achieve this, but as of right now, with what we've seen, yeah, there's going to be a brief intensity of use, but then as things normalize, we'll see that come back down. Let's find out what that normalization is before we proceed with building parking or doing something that might not even be needed.
I mean, usually the standard should be met before the special use is granted. It's not a, we'll deal with that standard later once we've had a chance to play it out. But I understand that you're dealing with the benefit of not activating this beach with swimmers, which is not going to encourage that many more people to attend to it. I do think you will find more people want to be at that beach than you might think because there aren't going to be kids there. It could be sort of viewed as the adult hangout beach. I'm not joking. Like, I think you might get more traffic than you think just by way of not having the toys and the kids and all that stuff because they're not allowed in the water. So I wouldn't be so sure that this beach isn't going to get more traffic than you think.
But the nice thing is, 70 feet north of that, we have Elder Lane Beach, which has a lot of
That's
parking.
not in front of us. I get it.
I understand, but the parking lot is existing.
Yeah.
It's not proposed. It's there today, and it gets utilized for that same purpose.
Yeah.
Just like the parking study that we completed with Kimberly Horn identified Tower and Lloyd and the overflow of what those utilize, and the same thing for Maple as well.
Yeah.
It hasn't been an issue for those areas. We don't intend it to be this year here as well, but we could build the parking lot and it doesn't get used and we tear up green space, or we can monitor
wants
it
to
and
do
move
that.
forward. So I understand.
Well, in that regard, I appreciate the concern about the parking. Another thing that's not uncommon in situations like this or cases like this is to provide, as a condition, a look back. After it's been in operation for 6 months, a year, 2 years, the village could require a look back. And then if it turns out that there is a problem with parking, implementation of one of these multiple
Yeah,
options.
the ideas are great, and I appreciate that you guys have given the time to think through them because we don't, and I do think land bankment is the worst idea, so I'm glad that, that's low down on your priority list. One more question, and then I'm done. What happens in the 2026 season? For all of the talk of safety and concerns and our non-compliance with running this beach right now, there's no way that you're getting this done in time to effectively have this complete in the 2026 high season. Is the plans to shutter the dog beach for the 2026 season or operate it under your current condition, which is lax enforcement of the ordinance for on leash?
So as I stated earlier, the park board has given staff direction to figure out what enforcement might look like and bring that back to the park board for consideration. Okay. We understand that there's a risk out there right now, and we're looking to address that risk. Okay. As it relates to the operational control, we are looking to sustain the beach in its current setting where it is under Ordinance 596, where dogs have to be on leash. So as part of the approved park district budget, there are park rangers that will help with enforcement and being a gentle, soft reminder to be like, hey, excuse me, not sure if you realize,
Sure.
and you can inform people. And then if people decide that they don't want to abide by that, then we can look to see what those other options are as far as citations and so forth.
cops.
But monitor this in a respective way for the community.
Got
but
it.
Status quo through 2026 until we can get all our permits in line to complete the project itself.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Anyone else?
I got just a couple of follow-ups. Costa, as this has evolved and there were challenges of having the fence all the way back and so forth, and this has moved around, was there ever a consideration by the Park District, given the challenges down there, to reopen some of those, the discussion on some of those other places where a dog park or a dog beach could be? Or was it always, no, we're going to have it there, we just need to keep adjusting until it works better?
Staff was given direction by the park board, as I stated, October 2022, to proceed with the plan. We've amended the plan based on our facts and findings and what we've seen thus far through engagement and what we've heard, and we continue to amend the plan to make it the best for the community. So as of right now, we're continuing with the plan. There hasn't been direction given for the park board to staff to reopen or reinvestigate Tower Road Beach as an opportunity, Maple Beach as an opportunity, or remove it altogether and look at for an off-leash dog park somewhere in the community. The direction is to maintain Centennial Beach, no greater than 270 feet, no less than 170 feet for the dog community here for the residents.
Okay, so either the park nor the park board itself thought to reconsider this. There was no discussion of that. It was.
There was discussion, but the ultimate motion that was passed was to sustain the beach to those limits as I identified. I can't speak to the exact discussion in those meetings. Those were several years ago. But as I mentioned, in 2021, the park board took it upon themselves to put together a community-based group to identify and research other locations. Based on the facts and findings and what they brought back, we looked at some plan designs for Tower Road Beach. The park board ultimately decided to proceed and continue with the design within those limitations that I've already stated for Centennial Beach.
This would be, is it true this would be a new thing for the village of Winnetka to have fences going out beyond the high water mark across beaches, whether it be its impact on actual egress across or sight lines? This would be something new for us. It doesn't exist today.
So I would say that the way that it's understood, or my understanding of fences on the lakefront are considered walls or fences as well. So any one of these steel obstructions would be considered a fence as well. And when you look at the shoreline, there are many impediments up and down the shoreline of Winnetka, some just a few properties south of Centennial that are impassable. So for us to be able to design a plan that is considerate of our obligations to regulatory agencies, to maintain a standard that the community has asked for, this off-leash dog beach area, give back the other half to the community for a passive beach, and try to make everything work for everybody the best we can, I feel that this is a very elegant plan that meets those conditions. But to your point, as far as a fence, if you give me a definition of a fence, if it's chain link, I would argue that I'm not aware of chain link fences that, besides around the power plant, there's rails and there's
You're
fencing
not a what?
there.
I'm sorry.
I'm not aware
Aware.
of
Oh, okay.
chain link fencing, but I can tell you that there are other impediments, whether they're
Rocks
boat
or-
ramps,
yeah.
whether they're docks, whether they're gantry crane systems to launch boats, that are impediments or revetments that people cannot walk the shoreline continuously through Winnetka. I have a slide that, if you'd like me, I could show you of some of those impediments as well.
Okay. All right, that's all I have at this point. Thank you.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, if I could just, a few concluding comments. First, in response to Mr. Haller, your last few comments. In your packet, you received, not from us, but from residents, information that confirms that Evanston has a dog beach, Wilmette has a dog beach, Highland Park has a dog beach, Lake Bluff has a dog beach. It's also confirmed that in one or more places, they all have fences. And I think it's relevant because I sat through every village council meeting that involved the adoption of and consideration and adoption of what is now the village's steep slope ordinance. And there was a lot of emphasis put on the fact that all the other North Shore communities up and down the lakefront had a steep slope ordinance, except Wilmette. They all did. So to say that, when Winnetka here is doing something unique or different, I don't think that's fair, because as you heard and as I just said, every other
Simply asked
community.
the question. I
What?
didn't- I just asked a question. I didn't make an argument that it's
Okay.
unique.
The last thing I would say, just as a point of order and clarification, because this came up at the beginning of our discussion, I would like to just make, again, as I say, a point of order, and I haven't discussed this with anybody at the village, but the issue came up as to what about the plan that was considered by the Plan Commission that was recommended unanimously for denial. That plan has not been officially withdrawn by the Park District. So in my mind, what would eventually end up at the Village Council is both recommendations and both plans. I'm only saying that, I don't think we've withdrawn the first plan. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Friedman.
I don't know if you used the words withdrawn, but you, at the Plan Commission, said you want to provide an alternative plan.
we've
And then
done.
you submitted usually
Which
an
we've done.
alternative plan replaces the one that preceded it.
I can see that. But the only reason I'm bringing this up, we do want to proceed with the alternate plan, obviously. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because the original plan addressed the chair's concern about one access point, only one use of the property, and it's the plan that has actually now been approved by both the Army Corps and the IDNR, and it had no fob-controlled gates on the beach. There was free passage for anybody that didn't mind cutting through a dog beach. So that is still an option. I'm just saying it addresses your specific concerns. Plan A addresses your specific concerns of not intermingling dog beach users and non-dog beach users, and it also addresses the concerns some concerns that were expressed tonight about having to go across the dog beach only if you have a fob. There was a plan presented to the village which would obviate both of those concerns.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Kosa, you're good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open this up to public comment. Obviously, this is the only item on the agenda. I assume you're here for this. Otherwise, I feel sorry that you waited this long. So why don't we start, as we normally do, in the front row. If you could, please keep your public comment to 3 minutes. And if you have spoken before, please be respectful of everybody's time if it's repetitive or reductive of something you've already said. I could swear everybody in all at once if that's easier. Yeah, anyone who plans to stand up and give testimony, anybody who plans to give testimony, stand up. I'll just give a grand. Do you promise that the testimony you'll give tonight shall be the truth? Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, we'll start in the front.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Kimberly Marsh. I live on Forest Street. I'm a lifelong Winnetka resident, and I've used the dog beach on a daily basis since it opened. So I'm down there sometimes in the summer twice a day. I don't know if that's captured on the data, but I sometimes go in the morning and in the evening. And I'd just like to say one thing about Commissioner Bradley. I appreciate you focusing on the stairway and the commingling aspect of the stairway, because right now the fob is at the top, and that complies with the Cook County Animal Control rule about having the vaccines and submitting that and then getting your fob, and that's a regulated area. All my dogs have been athletic dogs who are very eager to go down to the dog beach. And for me to walk a dog down that stairway on a leash is putting my own safety at risk, because my dog is pulling me down those steps. So I'd like you to think about that when you think about the commingling with the children and the other, if the adults who want to go down and sit on the passive beach. Those people are going to have me coming down with a dog who's eager to go down. And I think that the cage on the beach is a terrible idea. I think the Cook County Animal Control has approved the top, the way it works with the fob at the top, and I'm very much against fencing on the beach for all kinds of reasons. But the piece of paper that I brought today addresses what has been implied by the Park District is that somehow Cook County Animal Control is stating that the fence on the beach is required, and it's not. As long as that gate up at the top and the fence at the top is there, that complies. And there is a email from Megan Carolyn, DVM, who's the Deputy Administrator of the Cook County Animal Control, and this is from February of '25, and it's addressed to Ms. Nazal, who's at the Park District, and she says, Shannon, while our ordinance does not speak directly to this unique situation, we feel it is important to allow the other relevant agencies to make their determinations before moving forward. In the meantime, our Bureau is still reviewing the legalities. So to imply somehow that Cook County Animal Control requires fencing on the beach is not a truthful statement. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your public comment. Anyone else? Mike, got this.
My name is John Root, and I'm a resident of Winnetka. And y'all have covered an awful lot of the stuff that I was going to go ahead and talk about tonight, so I'll make it short. For the stairs going down from the tableland to the beach, you cannot step off of them. You come on the top, you come off the base, and again, you have metal railings on either side for all 48 inches. So it's not like a sidewalk, it's a stairway. A narrow stairway. As far as the trespass issue that you all have talked about before, I'll go ahead and say that from this bypass, the bypass is taking you on the park's front yard and dumping you on 205 Sheridan's front yard. And how do you go ahead and approve a plan that basically requires trespass? As far as the easement is concerned, y'all addressed that back in 2004 and 5 with your questions, and the park has taken no action to try and get that easement. So thank you much.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Angie Dahl. I've been a resident of Winnetka for over 40 years. I have served both as a commissioner and president of the Winnetka Park District. I have also served on several advisory committees within the village. You are being asked tonight to consider and approve a revised application from the Winnetka Park District to allow the installation of fencing on the existing Centennial Beach. A prior version of this application was submitted to the Plan Commission for review and was unanimously rejected. The rejected plan, as well as the revised plan you're considering tonight, have one purpose in common: the installation of substantial chain link fencing at Centennial Beach in close proximity to a private homeowner's motorized boat ramp. Recent comments made by Park District staff and commissioners indicate that the newly formulated plan submitted for your review this evening is for some type of temporary fencing. Previous ideations of their submissions refer to a permanent black chain link fence. Indeed, the sole reason behind the continued application for the special use permit, whether temporary or permanent, is because of a proposed donation agreement and restrictive covenant between a single property owner and the Winnetka Park District. One of the biggest concerns from the public, your own board, and the Plan Commission concern the safety issues and hazards created by the installation of these types of fencing. Fencing by design creates barriers limiting access and egress. The placement of fencing may create designated traffic patterns which will limit accessibility and result in a potential hazard for responders in the case of a water or sand emergency. Whether temporary or permanent, the types and designs of fencing being proposed tonight create an unsafe environment for people of all ages and physical abilities and animals leashed or unleashed. Additionally, the initial design of the Winnetka Park District included the relocation of an electric key fob system to the actual beach area. This is of great concern given the proximity of this feature to the water. There is no comparison between what is being proposed by the Winnetka Park District and any other North Shore beach design. No other unit of Illinois local government is or would be willing to take money from an immediate adjacent neighbor and lock itself into inflexible beach usage or designs for 1/2 century, regardless of safety concerns, beach erosion, changing lake levels, changing beach demands, and changing population demographics. No other unit of Illinois local government would lock itself into such a plan without knowing the availability of sufficient future tax dollars necessary for the maintenance of expensive project elements for 50 years.
Thank you. We're at 3 minutes, if you could conclude.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I respectfully ask you to deny this application.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Anyone else?
Put my glasses on. Good evening to you members of the Zoning Commission. My name is Mary Garrison. I've also lived here 40 years. I've been on the Plan Commission, and I'm a former Winnetka Park District Commissioner, as well as a former president of the Winnetka Park District. I submitted a detailed letter outlining my opposition to the Winnetka Park District's proposal, and I respectfully ask that it be included in the record. Tonight, I want to emphasize only 3 points. First, no fences on the beach. Centennial Beach is defined by its openness. Installing chain link enclosures and entry cages permanently alters that character. Secondly, fencing by the water creates safety concerns. Lake conditions change. Fixed barriers in a dynamic environment introduce new risks rather than eliminate them. And third, the precedent matters. Once structural encroachments into the sand and the water are approved, it becomes far more difficult to prevent additional barriers in the future. The zoning's responsibility is to protect public health, safety, and welfare, and I urge you to exercise that responsibility and deny the Winnetka Park District's proposal.
Thank you. Thank you for your public comment.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Linda Welch. I'm a 40-year resident of Winnetka and a year-round user of all the beaches from the north to the south. I believe strongly that this fencing is unwanted by the Winnetka community. I believe strongly that it is unsightly. The view of Centennial Beach when you stand at that bluff is one of the most beautiful in all of Winnetka. Imagine looking down there at chain link fences and cages. I believe it's extremely unsafe for a variety of reasons. I'm very worried about electronic gates and cages, and electricity goes out, a variety of reasons that have already been stated. And unfortunately, there's some real concern that we're putting up something that's permanent when we don't know what the future of the lakefront plan is, and we don't even know if we want this. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
This is going to sound old, but I've been here in town for 40 years too. My name's Alan Welch. I live on Willow Road. I'm a Dog Beach user. 5 years ago, I was a member of the Dog Park Selection Committee. I'd just like to clarify our position. We chose Tower over the current position. We didn't want this small portion of the beach specifically to be caged in. It's not good for the people, it's not good for the dogs. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else?
Good evening, Village of Winnetka Zoning Board of Appeals members and staff. I'm Susie Schreiber. I was a Winnetka Park District Commissioner in the 1980s and also a member of the Plan Commission at that time, and I was also Vice President for quite a number of years. And I am more than a 40-year resident of Winnetka. We'll just leave it at that. Some of my points have been made. I'll try to go over these quickly. The water levels, to me, are a really great concern because they do go up and down, and they aren't on a very carefully structured thing. Mother Nature and Father Time do their own work. They make their own storms, and they are climatically variable. We do have sand accumulation that occurs and then disappears. And I think this fencing, where if it's high water levels and you still have part of the permanent fencing in, it's black chain link, can't be seen, you are going to have safety issues, both people outgoing and incoming, because not everyone or every dog thinks about the water conditions and issues like that when they dive in. We all know that, and there have been some sad occurrences. I would not want to see rescue or the users who are getting entangled have to have in-lake fencing. I don't believe there is any in-lake fencing predominantly on the 63 miles of Illinois shoreline, and I wouldn't want to set a Great Lakes precedent by saying it was done in Winnetka and therefore. I also have a question on the underwater cement piles marked on the Winnetka Park District maps provided for this project. Have they been removed, or were they removed last year? They should have been removed from your drawings because the state of Illinois, one of the reviewers, noted that there were shoals, natural shoals, and they're not natural shoals, and the Park District clearly marked them as cement piles, because they should be out before anybody goes in or any dog. An alternate solution might be to consider a plan for the sharing at a special rate to allow Winnetka Park District residents use the Wilmette Dog Beach at Gilson Harbor. The other consideration would be timing. And my last point is the parking zoning. I didn't know we could talk about that tonight. It says Winnetka residents. It does not say Winnetka Park District residents, and I am a Winnetka Park District resident. And so therefore, I have to park in Elder and walk my dog or myself over.
Yeah. Sorry,
So
we're at
thank
3
you
minutes.
very much.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Anybody else wish to give public comment? Come on up.
I just want to thank you for your time. I know that this is not the first time you've had a lot of these conversations. Oh. I wanted to thank you all for your time. I know that this is not the first time you've had some of these conversations, and I appreciate you sticking with it, as well as everyone else who's here tonight. My name is Susan Curry. I live at 375 Hawthorne Lane. I am an active Dog Beach user. Most of the families in my neighborhood are active Dog Beach users. when you go to the dog beach, and I don't know how many of you have been there on a weekend or a weekday, it's very different than like what it sounds like when it's being discussed here. It's a happy place. There are not a lot of accidents. I think some of the stats around that, were presented at earlier meetings, right? There are not people being bit by dogs at the dog park. People are having a great time. In fact, there's a lot of research that shows that parks and water and sand are the best places for dog. Just like for humans, it saps all of your energy to run through sand and to run through water, right? You don't have the hard collisions and you have far fewer dog and dog aggressive engagements because of it. It is the place for dogs to be. I would also say it's the place for all of the people to be. I suspect that the numbers are very low relative to the number of people who are actually there. A lot of families go with more than just one person with the dog. A lot of dogs are there multiple times a day, or they're there for hours on end. It is an amenity that has been in our community for 30 years, as I understand it, and it's not been a problem until we started dealing with some other issues at that property line. And I would just ask that before we throw all of this out, and try and reinvent it. I know Tower is something that is, under discussion. I got to tell you, I'm not sure we need a lot more summertime traffic right in that part of Winnetka when everyone's already going to the beach and we've got bottlenecks existing, right? There isn't a perfect place, but we've been in place for a long time effectively, and I would just hope that you would take that into account as you're thinking through these decisions. If we can simplify, let's simplify. If we need to add something to make it safer, let's absolutely do that. But let's not just kind of cut this short. And, having moved to Winnetka in 2018, shortly after I, by the way, literally the day that I moved in, I was reading the 2020 waterfront plan. That didn't go so well. But then you start seeing kind of how everything else moves forward. And we've got to find a way to cut through some of this to make it a little bit easier and to allow people to enjoy the beaches. The paddle racks were removed from our beach shortly after I moved in. Then Elder was closed, still is closed for 5 years, may be open for people to actually be swimming there this summer. Unclear when that's going to happen, probably not the start of the beach season. And now we're talking about removing our last, amenity.
We're at 3 minutes.
Yeah, our last amenity on the beach, so.
Thank you for your
Thank you for
public
your time.
comment. Thank you. Anybody else wish to give public comment?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Dave Robertson. I'm third generation Winnetka resident. Some of you might recognize my name because my dad was a swimming coach at New Trier for many years. And I also grew up at 286 Sheridan, so about a block and a half away from where we're talking about here. And this was an area where kids, when I was growing up, would have fun and run up and down the bluffs and use the beaches and be able to do all of those things that kids do. I think that having seen what's been presented tonight and discussed, I just ask that the board deny the application that has been made to create this dog park, which I think is really for the benefit only of the adjacent neighbor. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Marte. I have lived in Winnetka for almost 50 years. We have 2 children and 5 grandchildren who live several blocks from Centennial Beach. I am concerned about safety. It is a known fact that the water level at the beach goes up and down. That water level reached the bluff in 2020 per NOAA. Wouldn't adding a fence cage create a dangerous scenario should the water reach the fence being proposed? The cage would be completely underwater. Many of us are here tonight to represent concerns for safety. It is clear that this current plan does not work. Winnetka has spent endless hours and several $1 million on plans that have been unacceptable for safety reasons. Why? We can all agree that these discussions need to stop going around and around and around. I am hopeful for a final safe plan works for all citizens of Winnetka, not just 1 or 2 residents. Please deny this request. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else? Come on up.
I'm Steve Juliuson. I live in Hubbard Woods for 20 years. For 5 years, the WPD has worked with a billionaire on beach plan after beach plan, all with one thing in common: keeping people away from his beach. They spent your tax dollars on civil engineers and lawyers and designers and social media specialists and traffic consultants, creating louvers and boardwalks and planters and piers. With surveys and studies and plans and workshops and permits and open houses. $1 million here, $1 million there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. $2.3 million to be exact. But all that money for beach plans went to the plans and then to the beaches, which still aren't open after 5 years. Now the WPD wants to splurge on fencing for a dog beach. Meanwhile, WPD fees are up, up, up. Next, they'll want the shirts off our backs. If so, we'll all need something to wear. Like this t-shirt, it's 100% cotton. It says the Winnetka Park District spent $2.3 million on beach plans for a billionaire, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. I'm offering these to the board. You can have them for free, but if you don't feel comfortable, they're $15.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else wish to give public comment? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is David Stevens, and I've only been a resident for 37 years in Winnetka. As I listened tonight, and I've been to several of these meetings, and I appreciate the Park Board's hard work on trying to revise the plan and address individual issues. And in this plan tonight, they've addressed several of the things that were brought up before. But the biggest problem I have is I looked at that, and someone made a comment tonight is, well, we've reduced the amount of dog beach from 490 to 265 feet approximately, and there was little gain to the use of the other beach because we didn't need any more parking. Then what are we doing it for? So my thought as I listened to everything tonight was, we really need a comprehensive plan that shows everything that we're doing on this, not just piecemeal, not just fencing on Centennial, not just rearranging the dog beach. We really need the full plan in order to move forward and approve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else? We're getting to the back. This is the last chance. Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm just saying. And and I would also say there was recently Ted. There was also recently apparently a zoning meeting in Indiana on a data center that started at 7 and they voted to deny it at 4:30. So you're looking pretty good right now. Yeah. Thank you. In any case, I said Ted. Actually,
he doesn't have to give his name.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Does he?
Don't. Oh, hey, this is cutting into my time.
Address. Sorry, I'm going to restart your time. I was just wasting.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
So anyway, I have 3 minutes. I have to be direct. The Park District's presentation full of lies and half-truths, okay? As it's been pointed out, this is the same fence that was denied last year. It's designed in a way that would make it difficult, depending on how you want to define private land, because you guys all talk about it like it's private, and that is not clear. But it does lend the possibility to the southern owner to say that it's their land, although it's not clear. And the idea that they're going to somehow comply with the permits that they have already clearly not complied with by building a structure on the beach that wasn't permitted after being told they needed to get a permit modification, and now, perhaps more importantly, by suing someone, asking the courts to exclude that person from 165 feet out from the toe of the bluff originally, and now only to the land that they have filled in, and denying the right for that person to walk along what was formerly submerged lake bed, claiming that it is private, in direct contradiction to the permit that they received on this, saying that they can make no claim of formerly submerged land. The idea that they somehow will allow an easement to potentially let people walk to those stairs, I feel, is unlikely. But it is interesting, as it's also been pointed out, and I'll try to be really quick, the dog beach and the fencing was gone when the louvers were out onto Lake Michigan. It was only after the louvers were denied or removed that the dog beach returned to Centennial. Back then, there was a plan to move it to Tower. And the Park District talks about the problems at Tower, but the problems at Tower are no different and perhaps less than the problems at Centennial. I would say almost certainly less. And so in the interest of compromise, and although I personally believe that there should be no fencing or dog beach anywhere on the lakeshore, it seems like Tower is a better choice. As you've heard, it was a site that was chosen in the past. It had been removed by the Park District from their plan when they had louvers on the breakwater, and it poses, I would say, less problems and less trouble than this current plan. But the real question is whether that type of compromise is really the compromise that the Park District is looking for and what their true agenda is on this.
Thank you for your public comment.
So I'm going to speed talk because I have a lot to say. So, can I talk from here really loud?
Sure, let me start the timer.
My name's Katie Stevens.
Thank you.
I live on the lake. I have more experience with the lake than probably anyone here. This plan is worse than the last plan because it's 2 feet higher. How do we get to anyone on the other side? If it's 52 inches high, how am I going to go save someone on the other side or vice versa? We had 4 deaths in Winnetka. Lake Michigan's like an ocean. It is not a lake. The cage will be underwater. The lake was up to the bluff line in 2020. Then we had a 70-foot beach. Now we have like a 15-foot beach. The water level, that cage will be in the water. It's dangerous for swimmers, kayakers, boaters, paddleboarders. It's the worst, most unsafe plan I've ever seen. The water comes up to the bluff. The restrictive covenant requires that the dogs be on the south side of the beach. The restrictive covenant that the Park District signed requires this fence. Okay? It requires it. You should read the restrictive covenant. It's the most important document. You must see what is right next to this, which is that pile of rocks. That is like the danger zone of the waves go this way, all 90% of the time. So you're going to be pushed, if you're walking in that, into the rocks. This blocks my right. If they keep saying I'm walking at the water line, I'm walking in 12 little feet at the bluff line. There's no fence that should be in the lake ever. It will be in the lake, I promise you. If the land is swapped, this is a permanent fence for a private individual. Winnetka, this is Winnetka Gate, unlike Watergate. The lake homeowners say that you will set a precedent. There will be 88 fences that will be requested ×2. You are in charge of morals and welfare. So like I had to guess what this was, but is it good to give away the park control for 50 years? Are we going to cede this property? If they swap it tomorrow, if you grant this, then that becomes a private individual's fence. So I think that's moral and not in the public's best interest. The dogs get 250 feet of a cage. Tower Road was given to them free, 150 feet of land by the village, free. What park district turns down? They said they did it because of the pier, but they're building a pier. So none of this makes sense to me. The dogs get the cage. We walk at the bluff. I'm not good with this. Do they have the process to start over on the groin. I also heard the groin needs to be fixed or replaced. Is the public trespassing? The 150-foot offer was free. They also were given a $3 million donation with no strings, and they turned it down in 1 hour. This has the restrictive covenant. It's so many stipulations. So, this is the danger zone, the triangle.
We're at 3 minutes.
6-foot drop will be washed away, feet up on the rocks.
Thank you for your public comment.
I appreciate your time. I'm sorry I couldn't say thank you because I ran out of time.
Thank you for your
It's a
public comment.
Terrible plan.
Anybody else wish? Sure, come on up.
I'm Melissa Mizell.
Good evening.
I love dogs. I'm crazy about happy dogs. I'm sorry to say that I don't think the plan presented has been designed for the chief purpose of making dogs happy or their owners happy. I'm saying this because I don't believe that fundamental design principles for such a facility have been embraced here. These principles include the standard recommendation that small dogs be separated from large dogs, that adequate shade be available, and that the area not be so large that owners struggle to regain control of their dogs if they happen to lose it. I don't know who the ultimate authority is on desirable square footage per dog, but my preliminary research suggests 100 square feet per dog at peak usage, and this proposal allocates 4 times that. I also like people, especially happy people, and I don't believe the Park District's plan has been put forward to make Winnetka's human inhabitants happy. I think we need only study the no trespassing sign that exists now at the south end of the beach to reach this conclusion. The sign has 4 instructions, the last of which states, walkers must follow riparian rights. That's all of it. Walkers must follow riparian rights. Do you know what this means? Does Borat? Whose riparian rights? The pedestrians, the neighboring property owners? A sign meant to guide pedestrians would inform them clearly of what their rights were. Instead, we get this Delphic command to what? If you're the rule-abiding type, you might just decide it's best to turn around. And indeed, encouraging that conclusion seems to be the express purpose of this peculiar language. Winnetka runs on volunteer labor. I've been a volunteer. I'd guess that the majority of people in this room either are volunteers now or were in the past serving Winnetka. So it's really with a tremendous reluctance that I disparage the efforts of any of our volunteers. There are some harsh words for the process we're experiencing, and I'd rather not use them. Instead, I'll say that we, and you, are being hornswoggled, or better yet, bamboozled, and I urge you to refuse to tolerate this manner of proceeding. Just refuse, and deny this application for special use.
Thank you for your public comment. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. So, we will close public comment. Thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful comments. It's part of what makes our village great. People come out. I will afford the applicant the right to respond to any of the public comment if they wish to, no obligation to.
Yes, thank you for that opportunity, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to say I understand a number of the concerns of members of the public. I would say respectfully, I think that the process works, that, you know, this is why we go through this process, and I never lived in Winnetka for 40 years, but I did live here for 25 years, and for about 5 of those years, I sat where you sat, and I understand the challenges that confront you when you're sitting on that side of the table. I think the process, like I said, works. If you recall, the first plan came in with fences going into the water. Those have been withdrawn. As I said earlier, the first plan contemplated everybody having to pass through if they wanted to walk the shoreline, pass through the dog beach. That has been addressed. the Park District believes it addressed concerns about the installation of new fences by dealing with the existing encroachments into the water, if you will, along the property lines by putting these fences on the existing groins, again, creating the bypass. So, you know, we are trying, the Park District is trying to address all the concerns that you've heard. I would just like, in response to a couple of comments that were made, go back to, if I could, why we brought this up at the very beginning of our presentation. Like the laws have changed. As you heard here, you know, this dog beach, and when I lived in town, I used the dog beach once or twice. The dog beach was created in 1995. The laws changed. The village adopted an ordinance, you know, 13 years later that said all dogs have to be on a leash, whether they're on private property or public property. This is why we shared this information with you. The rules changed. I think it was at the Plan Commission meeting or hearing, I think that, Mr. Chairman, you asked the question, when did the county regulations go into effect? And I think Costa said around 2010 is what he believes. And, you know, contrary, and, you know, so the rules have changed. We're trying to deal with the fact that laws have changed over time, which we all deal with. We all deal with the fact that the laws that govern our conduct changes over time. The other reason at the very beginning of our presentation that we shared this information with you, and this is, you know, to address the comment that was made by the first public comment tour, Kimberly Marsh, where she said the dog beach doesn't have to be totally enclosed. I just don't think that's an accurate statement. As we shared with you here, this comes right out of the Cook County Department of Animal and Rabies Control Regulations 8 that says a dog park must be completely enclosed. And if you look at, again, not at our comments, not what we've submitted, but the comments that Mr. Root submitted the first time around, he said right here, in looking at all these other North Shore dog beaches, that this review of North Shore Lake Michigan dog beaches in Illinois shows that fencing is the most popular method used to separate, confine, and delineate dog beaches from human beaches. What's being proposed here is not unique. And it's required. Now, does it have to look like this? No, but, you know, that's what we're going to find out when we get to the DRB. So, you know, again, we appreciate all the time you've devoted to this and to other matters that you devote your time to. We're trying to accommodate everybody's concerns, and we hope you find that our response is reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Counselor. Okay. With that, we will close public comment and bring this in for deliberation. So we've got our standards for everybody's need and easy access. You can look at page 22 of 157 in our packet. You know, please make sure your comments are speaking towards the standard in specific that's you're either feeling has not been met yet by the applicant or is giving you pause. But why don't we start on the right side and we'll sort of work our way down. Mike? Yeah, do you mind? Brave soul.
Yes, so I don't want to rehash all the, all the comments that members of the public and my co-members of the board have made with regard to concerns about public safety and health. I think that standard hasn't been met, and I am concerned about the potential danger associated with this fencing, particularly as some of the members of the public mentioned, when the water rises, which it inevitably will, and has many times over the 43 years I've lived in Winnetka. So I'm concerned about the health and safety risk. I also think that the fence is terribly unsightly and will be when it's new, and that certainly will get worse as the fence ages and deteriorates. And then the final comment I would make is that I'm in favor of a dog beach. I'm a dog lover and a dog owner. Although I don't use the dog beach, I am in favor of having one, but it occurs to me that an inordinate amount of time and money is being expended on trying to get this fence built when there are only an average of 31 users of the facility each day, some of whom aren't even Winnetka taxpayers. So for all of those reasons, I'm against the proposal.
Thanks, Mike. Todd?
Yeah. I'm actually sort of curious to hear some of the reactions because I feel like on a certain level, the alternate plan addresses some of the concerns that we discussed before on accessing, and I'm a little confused on how this benefits the neighboring owner. It seems to have what they want. Notable concern, I know, through a conditioned precedent is the setting up of trespassing, but that aside, it felt like it gave a pretty logical delineation of what a path would be if someone were actually walking the path. I don't know how if that happens, but from a number of other areas from design, which isn't really that's not our task. But from the plans that seem to be somewhat incomplete, or at least some permanent structures on temporary plans, just feels a little bit disjointed. So I'll stop there and listen to what Catherine and others have to say.
Okay. Catherine?
Great. Yeah, so I appreciate everybody's comments and the presentation tonight. I found it very helpful. I am coming out against approval of the special use permit. Similar to Mike on standard A, I had concerns safety and welfare wise related to the dogs and people on the same set of stairs, as well as fencing being inside the water at high water, and also the tight squeeze between the rock wall and the fence, again, at high water. Those are concerns of mine, which I heard echoed from the people, public comment. And so I'm leaning against on that front. On standard B, I felt like the fence does have a negative visual impact on people using the beach, in that it is blocking sort of the views. I appreciate how the revised plan tried to address that, but I am still concerned that at high water, you've got fence sticking out into the water and really cutting into the enjoyment of the property, in addition to the safety. And then also standard F, I felt like we discussed it at length, but the trespassing issue caused by not having an easement in place, and I would have preferred to see that was addressed prior to coming today, since it was discussed in previous meetings as something that might be necessary for us to get on board. And so that's where I'm landing at this point. I also, I'm concerned about the number of people using the dog park being very low relative to the population of the town. I have a dog. I am not able to use that dog park because my dog is extremely small. And so I would certainly be interested to hear more consideration of other alternatives given the other concerns in place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Lynn?
I agree with what has been said as well in terms of the safety issues. I can't help but be concerned, or my big hang up is I feel like, and I tried to come up with another metaphor, so I'm sorry, but I feel like this project is the tail wagging the dog, in that it is, we're forcing this to get done, even on a temporary basis, you know, it seems to be such a high priority to get this dog park done. We have this beautiful grand beach that nobody can swim on, and you know, but yet, you know, they've come in plan after plan after plan, but yet we just got to get this dog beach done, and I'm not understanding the priority of the dog beach, and this effort to shoehorn this dog beach into this onto this beautiful beach is falling short of what it could be or how it should be done, and it's creating more problems such as the safety issues. And you know, there's not a really good access for it. You know, we are blocking, you know, we're taking up a good chunk of the beach to make this dog beach with this big fencing and things like that. It just doesn't seem to be a well thought out plan as part of a larger effort to increase access to our beach as a community. We are serving the dog owners that want to use the beach, but is it the best place for it? Is it the safest place for it? Is it, you know, is it benefiting the general welfare of our entire community in this location? I'm not convinced that it is. So I don't think what they've presented as a plan meets the first standard as presented.
Okay. Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Okay, so the previous big, I'll call it maybe not the big beautiful plan, but the big plan that the Park District had in front of us last year, I thought there was a lot to it that was really great. I liked mainly like getting stairs down to the beach and certain things about that, and the revetment and taking care of like the bluff and all that kind of stuff was super important to me. But it was like this way too big plan, and like it just kind of covered so much. And then we went back to the drawing board and we wiped everything away. Oops, sorry, except the dog beach, like some fencing. The stairs don't work. Forget about the parking, but let's go to the standards. I mean, it almost falls short on all of them. And endanger public health and safety. Number 2, use and enjoyment of the property. Number 3, orderly development of other property. Sorry, that was A, B, and C. D is fine. E talks about parking. F talks about village ordinances and codes. Yeah, I mean, again, back to the bigger plan. Let's go maybe more back to some of the things in there, but, and I am a dog owner, but like this is not first in line for me. It would be the other things I discussed, so I'm not for it.
Mark?
Yeah, it's hard to say anything without covering some good ground that everyone else has covered. I find as well that it fails many of the standards that we have here to evaluate. I'm a little puzzled by the continued efforts to make whatever modifications need to stick with exactly this plan rather than listening and going back and thinking about all of the other options again to satisfy dog owners and to do so in a safe manner and not to put obstructions on the beach and not to put obstructions that may be underwater, you know, from year to year. I don't get a good feeling about long-term thought process here or safety or consideration of the balance between the rights of and enjoyment of dog owners and the rights and enjoyment of the other 98% of the village. And so I feel like it's all a bit out of whack, which could be even beside the point because for me, it fails very, very straightforwardly as I stack this up against the standards that we are here to evaluate. So I don't even need to get to my puzzlement in order to feel like I can't support this plan. But that's I could go down a number of these. I don't like the precedent it sets. You know, there's just many things. I'll stop and won't be any more specific other than to say that that as rigorously measured against the standards in which we need to make a decision, they fail for me.
Okay, well, for my part, I will say that, again, all great things have been said already. I appreciate everybody's comments. I'm leaning the same way. The concerns of safety, public health and safety that's found in our first standard, while the fence does create safety that would otherwise not be there if there weren't a fence, the very sort of regression or return to a mixed use of Centennial Beach, now having a North Beach and a South Beach, having that be sort of revisited as non-dog people go left, dog people go right through this stair, which we now have public testimony, is nowhere near as convenient or creating off-ramps as the sort of switchback that was there in the initial plan to just force these people down this steep stairwell. Just, it doesn't take much to understand that there will be incidents in there, and particularly because the dogs that currently use that beach are excited to get down there and get into the water. So in that alone, I was sort of disappointed at the amended plan because it invoked the very commingling that we were so vociferously against when the sort of big plan was before us. I do believe that there are parking issues, just as there were in the sort of activation of both ends of it. It does sort of feel like an either-or scenario that needs to play out at some point in terms of what is the best use with the right population density to take advantage of that space. I did appreciate the testimony that the Park District gave as to why some of the adjustments were made to the fence siting. And look, this isn't Florida. Like, we all know this. You cannot walk the shoreline of Winnetka. There's just, I mean, God bless you to try it, but it is, you will hurt yourself if you try to walk the shoreline of Winnetka. It is not meant to walk for miles and miles and just sort of enjoy that environment. That said, that's why our public beaches are so special, and the ability to walk those is so important to be protected. So, you know, obviously you're going to walk into a cliff and there's a drop off there. The fence being there makes sense in that regard to stop somebody from inadvertently slipping off it. And so I don't think that was unthoughtful. I think that was a thoughtful adjustment, even though it hurt because it did pull back into the conversation the navigability issue that, you know, wasn't there in the first plan because there was 20 feet of width to allow people to navigate on the park land to the appropriate watermark and then cut over, again, albeit with the stair issue or the height issue of the metal sheeting. I do think this is somewhat still continuing to push, you know, the square peg into the round hole and make this work. It's not our mandate to do anything other than review the merits of the plan. So while there may be other siting areas that have been considered in the past, that's not the basis for my not being on board with this here. It's that the standards are not met, namely the first, the second, and the fifth, which is the parking issue, which the more I thought on it, you know, I was concerned that the lack of swimming was going to be a good thing because it was going to mean less people go there. And then I mentioned it to my wife, and she's like, that might be our beach. That might be where we go because we don't want to deal with the kids and such. And that got me thinking this could be sort of like the hip, cool beach that all the adults go to that don't want to deal with the kids. All that's to say parking will still be an issue. I appreciate that the applicant has already thought through some of those issues and how they might mitigate that with the shuttle. Again, it's like the elephant in the room. We know that Elder parking lot is there and that people will take advantage of it. But the dog beach holders right now have an exclusive right to that parking lot. And So you're either going to say they're all there, and so anyone else who wants to use that beach, you know, you kind of have to figure it out later. I know that we've got escape ramps for that, including the shuttle and other things. So that wasn't like, doesn't sink the battleship for me, but it's not met today. My biggest concern ultimately is the safety, which it's not in here, but we do have a 2026 problem, right? That this beach continues to operate. You know, people have said there haven't been issues, no fences on the beach, and yet we're continuing to operate, you know, an off-leash dog beach. And again, we can say that the codes are there, we can say it's common sense, nobody would bring their dog to an on-leash dog beach and like go swimming with them in Lake Michigan. It doesn't make sense. And yet, you know, it's functioning today, tomorrow, next week. People will be able to do that. And so every day that we turn a blind eye towards real safety concerns, and particularly as Elder opens, we need to have an understanding of what's going to happen down there. We cannot run this dog beach as it's running right now and open Elder in June. It just simply can't happen for any number of safety reasons, unless we are going to be down there watching and making sure that every person who uses that dog beach keeps their dog on a leash at all times, which will kill the dog beach because nobody's going to go at that point. So something's got to give. That's the compromise idea that I was talking about. I hope we can work together, or if there's a way when you get to your final arbiter, which is the village council, that you guys can come up with a compromise to meet the moment and work together as the two governing bodies. Right now, we're just a recommending body, so our power stops. There was another solution, sorry, that had been proposed earlier at the Plan Commission level that I really would love for you know, a survey or some sort of a decision on, which is provide access at differentiated times for the beach to allow the dog owners to have some of that, you know, use and enjoyment, and then go away so that it can become a secondary use after the fact. It happens in the Eastern Seaboard a lot. I don't know that there isn't a way to explore that if the dog area must be sited on the southernmost end of our beach. We have plenty of comp beaches to look at in the area. Not all of them are fully enclosed areas. It's almost apropos that this screen is up. They are not four-wall enclosed, the dog beaches that are throughout the North Shore. We are just benefited, they are benefited by piers and, you know, innavigability issues on one or other side of it. If we could build like a dog Alcatraz and put them out there, like, that'd be great too, but we just can't do that. So I think we have the recommendation, or enough sufficient votes to recommend against an approval. I will, as we always do, afford the applicant the ability, if they'd like us to, continue this to a further meeting, whereby, you know, any and other alterations you'd like to can be made. If you'd like to not go forward with a negative recommendation, but at the end of the day, I think you know where you need to go for the final decision. So I'll leave it to you. We can continue this, or we can move ahead with a vote. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry. What we would be doing, just to be clear, as we've done in other meetings, we would be asking the village attorney to prepare a findings of fact, not unlike what was done at the Plan Commission, not unlike what was done in the larger Centennial project, so that we would vote on that at our next meeting.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry. We could do it on our next scheduled meeting, which could be the special meeting on Monday. So we wouldn't have to wait formally to our next regular meeting. But let's first see what the applicant would like us to do.
Yes, thank you for giving us the opportunity and the option. We would prefer that you proceed.
Proceed.
Not
Okay.
continue this further.
Thank you. Okay. Then I would entertain. Yeah, good call. Let's find out a quorum check. So that's out of order with our agenda, but we have a special meeting that is scheduled for a week from today, March 16th, where we'll handle the 829 Foxdale, 833 Foxdale case, as well as the Winnetka Congregational Church application. But at that meeting, we could also, I'm being told by village attorney, we could have the findings of fact prepared so that we could vote formally on it at that meeting, which, again, everybody wants expediency.
So we're not voting on anything today?
We would just make a motion to direct the attorney to prepare the findings of fact recommending against. But let's make sure we got a quorum, because I don't want to do this and then find out we've lost our quorum for the special meeting. Everybody good for next Monday?
I'm not here.
You're out? In on the end mark? To Catherine? You're in? I'm in, that's 4,
You got
and
4 for
3
sure.
maybe?
No, I'm a total no.
You're a total no, and you're a total no? I thought we had this date held, did we not? Yeah. Okay. It's a bit, which means a full
We
vote
have
on everything.
4.
Okay. Okay, then, are you good? Okay, then, I would entertain a motion to, a motion to direct, thank you, our village attorney to prepare findings of fact, and our recommendations against, approval for our meeting on March 16th.
So moved.
Can she do it if she's not gonna be there? Okay. Member Hanley, can I have a second?
Second.
Or Haller, roll call vote, please.
Member Hanley,
Yes.
Member Haller,
Yes.
Member Nielsen,
Yes.
Member Leister,
Yes.
Member Vender, Member Ritter, Chair Bradley.
Yes, by my count, the motion carries. Thank you very much, and again, we're just recommending body ultimately. We'll watch this through to village council. Okay, that is it for tonight. New cases 2529 SD and 2924 SU have been continued to our March 16th meeting. New business, April 13th, a regular meeting quorum check. Is everybody good for April 13th? Good? Good? Okay, we have a quorum there. If anybody wished to give public comment on something we didn't cover tonight, you could do it now. All right, closing public comment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Member Hanley, do I have a second?
Second.
Member Nielsen, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.